Yes, computer.
So this is a no talking shit zone now.
We're recording.
Okay, I love that. I love that. Okay, we're recording, so don't stop talking shit. Talk about fucking words that help. Holy Christ.
Okay, I'm going to take us live now.
All right. I mean, there's no, Darren, blah, blah, blah. It's okay, Darren, we're going live. Stop talking shit.
I was saying that more for myself as a reminder.
Okay, sure. Whatever you say, Fincher, whatever you say.
You fucker.
Shit. All right, let me turn my volume down here. What the fuck did I do with this thing? I love how we have these like friggin' first like 30 seconds of us just like not realize we're even fucking on and being stupid.
Story of my life.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm talking about me though, not so much you, But yeah, so here we are again. It's a beautiful day though. It is. So give us a second to get our bearings. Let this beer kick in a little bit.
Good morning, Ryan.
Oh, hey, Ryan. He's out there in England, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Cool.
So it's like 2:00 in the afternoon, I think, out there, right? Is it that late? No, is it that late over there though?
I think.
Actually, it's 10:00 here. It's 4 hours. I guess that makes sense.
Allie B's watching, and so is Jonathan. Good morning.
Jonathan Yingling. I wish my last name was Yingling. Speaking of, there we go, right there, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Hope it's helping out your family. Hope it works out. Hey, Allie. So I guess I'm done talking shit now, right? Get off my fucking ass and bitching for the last 15 minutes about nothing.
I changed his name to Whiny Tattooed Diva Bitch because he was just.
She's been riding my ass like a friggin' mule all goddamn morning. I don't know why. 3 p.m. Okay, that makes sense. It's fine because it's 5 hours ahead. It's 10:00 here, right? So yeah, England's 5 hours ahead. Of course, we're in New England, so he's in Old England.
Yeah, look at you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then Darren threatened me that when he has control over the Zoom account, he's going to quote unquote have fun with that. And then I said, you won't be able to because you won't be able to figure out how.
I'll figure out how. Don't you? What do you say the names you're going to come up with? Trust me. Some of those little names that no one knows about.
That'll be a day when you have the power of Grayskull like I do.
Oh, I'm going to have like some kind of wand. I'm just going to sit there wrong.
I'm going to change the password on you so you can never get in. Scott said, have fun today. Sorry, go ahead, read it.
I was going to stop and briefly. Thanks for stopping in, Scott, for a few minutes. Even a couple minutes is always appreciated.
Yeah,
Listen, our goofy asses ramble on for an hour or so, 2 hours, probably 3 hours. It gets longer every fucking time. But
it's very much viewer driven by their comments and stuff. And I actually have to give Allie a shout out, and Liza if she tunes in. The three of us were having pretty good discussion this morning about Joe Hooker actually and his reputation, and it was a really cool discussion.
Twitter. I saw that.
Yeah.
You notice I didn't hijack it. I just stepped back and watched.
You could have got into it if you wanted to.
I'm just kidding. We talked about that the other day. Remember about hijacking Twitter and. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, we did. And I tried to tell you it's not hijacking.
It's fine. Anyway, so I guess
good morning, Jim and Roger.
Hey, Roger, what's going on? Roger is going to go on a mission today. I was texting with Roger this morning at the ass crack of dawn, and he's going to go out and find some Yingling chocolate porter today. And so that's going to be his thing. And he's going to find it. He's going to report back and let me know how it is, because I think it's going to be really, really good. I think he's going to love it. Because this Jonathan, whatever your family put in this chocolate beer, it's really worth it because it's really, really good. So you are the man. You are the Prince of Pottsville, Pennsylvania, Jonathan Yingling.
Allie, JoJo Hooker, a fun dude for sure. That's an awesome JoJo Hooker. He's forever now known as JoJo Hooker.
JoJo, it's what bastardizing these poor guys. Allie was one of the people who came on our Facebook Civil War roundtable on Wednesday, which I thought was a lot of fun. Yeah, I thought that was a good time.
And when I found out she's, hasn't been studying the Civil War for too long, like I was shocked because like her knowledge of it, I'm like, whoa, she like it's cool. It seems like she's been studying it for years.
And like we were saying, Allie, just so you know, you're never going to not study it now. It gets into your blood. It got you. It has you now.
Yeah.
It's like a virus. You get that in your blood. Forget it. You are a Civil War nerd / loser like the rest of us now. And you're gonna read and read. Take a peek at the woman from Canada right there. That's your future right there. Just so you know, you're gonna be a complete over the top Civil War nerdling like the rest of us, except on the female version. That's where I was going with that.
Day drinking on a Saturday morning. We'll do Facebook Live.
Tell me about it. How many times you've day drank in Gettysburg? How many times you've morning drank in Gettysburg? 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning.
I've done that too.
Time for an eye opener. Crack. Here we go.
Yeah, I think I did that at Chickamauga actually.
I've done that everywhere.
I needed carbs, and all I had in the car was beer.
Well, way to really toughen up there. But hey, so speaking of alcohol, I guess I'll try to put us on focus. Not that it really freaking matters, but the alcohol in the Civil War was a fun podcast to do. It was a fun one to research. It was a fun one to just kind of go over. And it's fun. It's nice to get away from the battle stuff from time to time. I don't know why I keep touching my face, by the way. That's what they tell you with this COVID thing. Don't touch your face. And since then, I haven't stopped. Have you noticed that?
I have.
We're gonna say anything? Darren, stop touching your fucking face.
Stop touching your face, fucker.
Amy, greetings from the deathbed.
Oh, well, Amy, hope you're feeling better.
Sorry to hear she's feeling bad. She sounds like she's down and out a little bit, but it sounds like she'll be okay. A little bit of alcohol to take care of that.
Yeah, I just thought of Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off when he's in the bed and he's like, "I'm dying."
He's gonna call me. He's gonna call me. Okay, I'm gonna go. That is a great freaking movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right there. I think we'll be talking too much about that. But anyway, hopefully
Allie just said she bought 2 more books this morning. Which ones did you buy, Allie?
I bet it was Fincher related.
Not. Maybe she's going to enable us. You never know. The tables may have turned.
I think we pretty much know. Well, hopefully she's feeling better. So,
yeah.
Good morning, Jim. Didn't see him slide on there. Anyway, yeah. So I thought it was definitely a fun one to do. We definitely had a good time making it. The podcast the other night, and it was one that it was fun reading the stories. And and we got some messages. I think someone said, I'm surprised you guys didn't do U.S. Grant. And I think we didn't, just because it's kind of a low hanging fruit one, because it's kind of an easy one.
Yeah, I tried to kind of that's why I went for somebody like Trimble. I couldn't find any drinking stories about him, but he seemed like such a colorful character, and I really thought your thing with Custer was good too.
Admittedly, I went into that expecting to find how many times Custer woke up under the bridge after a long night at the Bang Barn, with the case of gonorrhea from A.P. Hill's trip to New York City with him. I thought there was going to be story after story. And it turns out, as much as Custer has that reputation, he doesn't. And that's the one thing I learned about this was, after he meets Libby Bacon, another fantastic name, Bacon, he makes a vow to never drink again, and he never does. But he wanted to drink a little Bighorn, though. I would have, but he certainly was one that surprised me a little bit, because I didn't think he drank at all.
Yeah, it was the same for me with I knew this about Pat Claiborne going into it, but I thought, okay, well, I want to pick somebody that when I first studied them, I thought, oh yeah, these guys are going to be party animals. And I admittedly thought Claiborne was going to be a heavy drinker, and nope. And as I said in the podcast, the reason he wasn't is because he became such an angry drunk, but he also did not want to perpetuate the Irish stereotype, which at the time in America, especially if you've seen Gangs of New York, like you've seen how the Irish were treated, and he didn't want that. And
they obviously don't drink anymore, the Irish. As growing up in Irish Boston, I can tell you point blank, no Irish people in the city of Boston drink. So Allie got The Real Horse Soldiers by Tim Smith and the new Tullahoma book by Dave Powell and Eric Wittenberg. And we know all of them. They're all friends of ours. Yeah. Is it Tim Smith, Gettysburg Tim Smith from Farnsworth House Tim Smith? He does the videos with Gary. Allie, is that the same one? We know Dave Powell from Chickamauga and Eric Wittenberg from the Cavalry.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tim Smith's a great guy. He last time I talked to him, I had a long conversation about George Meade, who he loves. Mm-hmm. He loves himself some George Meade. I mean, he's a good dude, though. He's a good dude. Thomas Marr had no such qualms. That is true. He certainly did not.
Amelia hopped on. Hey, Amelia. She was at our roundtable the other night, too, which is really nice to see all these people in person. Amelia, actually, when she emailed me back about the roundtable to say she was going to be there, she sent me her choices for who she would drink with. And she said Longstreet because he'd have good bourbon, but she said her AA sponsor would be McPherson. because that is her OO in the Civil War, that's awesome.
Yeah, we didn't get into the AA sponsors.
Mine would be Howard.
What though? I was thinking if Howard was an AA sponsor, he could have a sign. It would OOAH. It would be ooh ah.
Well, someone said in the live.
You feel
I think
better.
It might have been Fritz.
Hey, Amelia.
That said OO for AA or something like that, or Leonard that said that last week on the live. And then this morning on Twitter, we had a few responses. Liza said she would like to drink with Sickles, who you mentioned, Burnside.
Sickles would be my absolute choice.
Hooker, Grusin, and Longstreet. Civil War on this day said Wilder, which I thought was an awesome choice.
Of course you did.
Leonard said John F. Bowen, Earl Van Dorn, and Garfield.
See, Earl Van Dorn would be an interesting one because you kind of like to not get shot when you go out drinking. Sickles is a good one. You know why? You get drunk and you wake up and you're a mile further away than you're supposed to be. So it's great. It's a great place to go drinking.
And Richard said Gibbon and AP Hill. So there was some solid.
Watch out for AP Hill. Better bring some penicillin.
He's got his ham bone.
That's what P stands for. Is penicillin. AP Hill.
He's got maybe if he gets really drunk, he'll show you the ham bone.
Okay, well, that's something I'd like to avoid. That's okay. That nightmare is brought to you by Mary Fincher. And good stuff.
Allie said that the Tim Smith she's talking about does a lot of Western books, Shiloh, Champion Hill, and I think he popped up on the Grant miniseries. Yeah, now that I.
Oh, it's different Tim Smith.
No, so the same one.
Richard
and Hey.
You know Tim Smith, right? The one I'm talking about.
From Gettysburg, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I've seen some of his battlefield walks before, I think.
No, he's a good dude. Hey, Allie.
Yeah.
Allie from the great state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
We didn't mention speaking of drinking in Minnesota, Allie probably knows that she's probably been there many times. There's a place called Gastoff's right by the University of Minnesota. It's a German bar. And I don't know if we're going off the trail or not because we're talking about alcohol, but this place, they serve those beer in those big boots. And it's that gigantic, that 18% ABU, right? And so we go there, and we're it's in a basement, right? In the floor is like a gym floor. It's like linoleum with like those spigots. And so we're sitting there. We asked the bartender, "Why does the floor look like this?" He goes, "This way, when you puke, I just pull out this big old green hose and I just spray it right down." It's called Gastoff's in Minneapolis. I'm sure Allie's heard of it. So I'm sure. But anyway, but there were definitely a lot of cool stories we discovered when we went through this. A lot of the fun was just remembering some of the old diaries about some of the stories about the guys drinking. The one that for those who listen to the podcast already, there's a really good story that I found at Fort Monroe, Virginia, with Benjamin Butler's guys, where she's been there. Of course, Allie's been there. That's a great place right there. My God, last time I was there, I finished the boot though. I did it all. No soldier left behind.
You were the one riding my ass about my drinking on the podcast.
I was. What are you talking about?
So many references to how much I drink. And then
wow, I guess
how many times have I heard you say, and then I woke up hungover in Gettysburg. Oh.
Hey, Mary, what are you doing? It's 8 o'clock in the morning. Oh, I'm just finishing my third drink. What are you doing?
Well, like I said on the podcast, when one hangs out with you.
I drink myself blind too. But anyway, so this story was they would have these picket guys. So they would go out and they'd go out about a mile out to set up a picket line. And they'd go out every night. They'd come back every morning. And then within 2 hours, the whole company was shit-faced drunk. And they couldn't figure out how the hell they were doing it. So they searched their canteens, they checked their bodies, they frisked them, did the whole thing. They couldn't find the alcohol until one day they realized the way they were carrying their guns back. They were walking back to the camp, holding their muskets straight up like this. And they were putting the whiskey, pouring it down the barrel and holding it in the barrel. Then they'd get back to the camp and they'd dump it out. And that's how they got their whiskey. And that's a great story. The other one is that story about the 428 dozen cans on the boat.
Oh yeah, that milk. What was that called? Devil's milk or
villainous eggnog was the name of it, right? So, so they, if those who heard that story or not, we'll tell a story again. But basically, there was a gunboat called the Jacob Bell, right? And they were searching the schooner out off the coast of Alexandria, Virginia. And basically they found a whole bunch of these 428 dozen cans that was sort of soldered. So picture this can, right? And it's cut down the middle, like right here. And it's glued back together. And so what happens is they searched the cans and they cracked it open like this. And in the bottom of the can was this, like an eggnog. It's probably like a rum milk drink. And the top was empty, so you'd crack it, and then you pour the other half into it so you have a cup. And that's how they did it. And they had not only did they have their own drink, but they also had a ready-made cup. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was a pretty friggin' story.
That's perfect. We've got some comments here about who people would drink with. So Allie B said, Longstreet would be my pick for sure. I want to hear those stories of him and Grant before the Mexican War, in particular when they tried to set up a play or something and they picked Grant for the female role because Longstreet described him as girlish.
Wow.
There was another general involved. There was a Confederate general involved in that story too. Can't remember who it was though. And then Jonathan said, for drinking, it is with Sickles. Love to hear his stories. Yeah. Oh, Sickles would be fun.
Well, Sickles is a legend. And you know what's so funny is you look at a Sickles, and too bad Jen Price is out running from cars, like what the hell she's doing right now as she is. But she's out there. I'll join you later. I'm running.
Good for her.
You can drive it so much quicker. First of all, Jen. Okay, but so she loves Dan Sickles, and so this is a guy who's legendary. I mean, legendary. So. He ends up with the DuPont family at age 20, and he's kind of a house guest. And allegedly, because, I'm talking black and white here, because God knows you get an email, but allegedly he is hooking up with this guy's wife who he's living with.
Allegedly.
And allegedly, quotation fingers, allegedly. And this couple he's living with has a 3-year-old daughter, Teresa. So fast forward till 12 years later, Teresa's 15, Sickles is 32 now. Now Sickles starts dating her. So he's dating the baby of the couple he lived with from the woman he hooked up allegedly with. And then he ends up marrying her, shockingly against the wishes of the family, which I can't imagine why. And then she ends up going to the bang barn with old Barton.
Barton Key.
Sickles ends up shooting Barton 38 shots, or whatever it is, from point blank range, misses 37 out of the 38, but finally gets him, allegedly. But he ends up after the war, because this war stuff is the war stuff, he ends up being the ambassador to Spain after the war. He ends up hooking up, allegedly, with the Queen of Spain, who I'll be honest with you was not very, but that's another story. He ends up with her. So this is a guy who just is a legendary type of guy. So I'm going to guess, and I'm going to agree with Jonathan here, not just because his last name is Yingling, which is definitely a strong point, though. I think it's a great story, a great guy to hang with, because I think he'd be a lot of fun.
Uncle Dan would be a blast. Like I definitely would like to drink with him. Allie K said, my drinking buddy is lame, but is Chamberlain. I don't think that's lame. I think that's cool. I want to know what kind of drunk he is. I bet he pontificates and I'd love it. I hope he'd bring his brother Tom, but I think Tom had some drinking problems later in life.
Well, Joshua Chamberlain, he'd have 2 beers and go, "Oh, I had 500 beers." I led a grand charge to the Lickbow in Canada, and we bought a whole bunch of beer with my bayonet. Turns out he probably sniffed a couple of caps,
Does a bayonet charge on Canada to go into the Lickbow?
About it.
Dave said, I'd drink with Barlow. He seems like he'd have your back if things went down. I would drink with Francis Channing Barlow, too.
The problem with Barlow is you can't go drive with him because he looks perpetually drunk all the time, just stares, right? So he could pull over. So you've been drinking? He's definitely been drinking. No, I haven't,
Favorite thing to say about being in a meeting is I'm Barlowing. And you just sit there in the meeting like...
how many pictures of you and I texted back and forth during work meetings saying Barlowing today? We're both like this.
We're Barlowing hard.
Barlowing through this freaking meeting.
And what's funny is when if we're wearing a plaid shirt during it, which I sometimes deliberately do on Mondays now when I'm in a meeting.
There was that one day with the same exact shirt on that meeting. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
That was pretty funny too. But the great thing about this debate though is you can't go wrong either way. I mean, there's a whole bunch of really good ones. Allie mentions John Rollins, who
as an AA sponsor. Ryan said Sickles was probably temporarily insane again with Queen Isabella. Allie said AA sponsor John Rollins because he would be the most aggressive dude about it. 20 letters a day if he sees you within 10 feet of a bottle.
You know who Sickles reminds me of a little bit in a way is Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
Just because, granted, Franklin was out plowing away in Paris with whoever he could find.
Yeah.
And Sickles and the Queen Isabella. Yeah, that's probably an important storm situation for him at that point of his life. But I think I always found the post-war comparison with that. Great. I'm not saying he's a Ben Franklin. Don't need your freaking emails. So email her, not me. Okay. I'm just talking about his post-war philandering type thing. In his attitude, because he was he was almost I hate to say it, like a modern politician back in the day.
Oh, absolutely,
like
he was. Yeah, absolutely, he was. But he definitely was. Ryan said, my drinking buddies would be Phil Kearney. He can afford the good stuff. Sir Percy Wyndham, try to get him drunk enough to admit the U.S. cabinet kidnap plan, and old Abe himself.
Phil Kearney would be a good one to drink with, actually. I bet you he goes. He's a New Jersey guy, Northern Jersey.
Yeah.
Probably knew where all the good whiskey was, all the embargoed stuff.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting drinking with Abraham Lincoln as well. Now, granted, apparently he was said to be a teetotaler, but he actually enjoyed red wine occasionally at dinner, I think, when they hosted dinners at the White House.
Lincoln?
Yep.
Shall I say Lincoln?
Yes. Buzzard's guts, man.
Buzzard's guts, man. That's probably what he said. He was puking in the morning. I'm puking up my buzzard's guts, man. Come on, Jonathan Nicolay, hey. Yeah, I'd give my Tylenol all my water. Do you have any children's Pedialyte?
Gatorade.
Oh no, you know what though? The best thing for that is Pedialyte. If I was down in Washington D.C. a year or so ago, and we had these little pouch, like the crystal stuff, like you mix it in the water, and you put that, you have a water with that the next morning if you've been drinking, and it's instantly gone.
Oh, I should remember
so
that.
One of the friends we went with, our friend Kate, she had she took the train down from New York City to Washington. We met her down there, and she had like a whole case of like the Pedialyte, and so the boy was ripping it open,
Isn't that
pouring
for
it in.
babies?
It works. I don't know what the hell magic it is, but if not that we encourage drinking in this situation here.
No, we don't.
Not one bit. But in case you do imbibe from time to time, that is a fantastic way for the morning.
And imbibe a bit too much as
I'm surprised you know. But I think but you can't go wrong with this. We got some Twitter mentions today. I know our friend Jim there mentioned Grant. Yeah. And U.S. Grant was one that was very interesting though, because the fine line with what we did with this is we don't want to sit there and kind of like do the whole make fun of like alcoholism thing, because that's not really what we were doing. It was just kind of like talking about who would be fun to do and some good stories about how to chase this stuff. I don't think Grant was an alcoholic. I don't.
No, neither do I. I don't. I think he was just like Doc Brown. Like I said in the podcast, he was just like Doc Brown, and he was just a lightweight when it came to it. Like he would have one or two drinks and just be completely shit-faced. And some people are just like that.
Mm-hmm. Allie says Pedialyte is a common college student trick to prevent hangovers. See, she knows.
Also milk thistle.
Leave it
not that I would know.
Leave it to the Golden Gopher. Allie, your Minnesota Gophers have a big game against Michigan today, so hopefully they can win that. We'll see. Football starts in the Big Ten. Started last night.
Who's Boston College playing today?
They're playing Georgia Tech today. They're not in the Big Ten though, but they played Georgia Tech today, and who the hell knows?
BC.
They absolutely. They look great and they look shitty. They look, typical BC. But no, he was a guy. Grant was a guy who had the reputation early. Mm-hmm. I think he drank because he was lonely, and especially when he was at those outposts. I think he was a guy, like we said on the podcast. Everyone knows that guy when you go out with. Yeah. And you and I certainly know one. Specifically. We won't say any names. Yeah. We won't say any names.
No.
It's
neither of us.
His last name rhymes with Looney.
Yep.
And so he's one who, like a lot of people, have a couple of drinks and then they're gone. In this, we call a microwave drink.
Yep, I have a friend like that too. Like there was one night, he'd he and I were sitting outside drinking, and like he was completely shit-faced, and I was like 5 or 6 beers in, and I was drinking the high alcohol stuff, and I was like not really feeling it. And he called me the next day to basically tell me, you drank me under the table and I'm not getting out of bed today. And I'm like, oh my God.
Honestly, you know something, Mary Violet, I'm going to tell you something straight. Okay. I don't know how you do it. Okay. Cause you're like 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing. And trying to hang with you sometimes is impossible. It's mission impossible.
I'm Canadian, so it's just in my blood.
I guess
and in my liver apparently. And it's about pacing oneself and drinking water and making sure you're eating enough. Particularly cheese and crackers, I find helps.
Okay. Josh jumped on. Hey guys, just recently found your podcast. Well, welcome. Thanks for saying really some good. Really enjoyed the show. Yeah, we have a lot of fun with this. I mean, the whole point of the podcast is just to kind of hang out and just talk casually about the stuff.
Yep.
It isn't really one of those educational. It's just the talk. It's just make it fun to basically like we're sitting in a bar hanging out talking about Civil War, because everyone's been to. Obviously, everyone who's probably on this is obviously a Civil War fan, or why the hell they would be on this. But, you sit at the bar at the Sweeney's Tavern, or you sit at the bar at some place just talking, shooting the shit about the Civil War. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, we just wanted to create a thing, too, that wasn't intimidating for people to come on here and, like, comment on stuff and tell stories. And that's what was happening on Twitter today. It was cool to see, like, who they would drink with, but also see the stories. And it's been really cool to see that on the live this morning. So like shout out to all you guys, because you're what is helping make this podcast. Like you guys are definitely like a big reason why we keep going with it. And we're 10 episodes in now, and it's I've learned so much more about the Civil War doing it. And our roundtable the other night I came away from it feeling so positive to see this community, and we're all on there talking about the Civil War, laughing, joking around. And that's what we wanted to do with it. And we hope once COVID's over and I can travel again, like when we go to battlefields, we would love to meet up with people and just sit around and talk about the Civil War, like just like this, So
you're so nice to everybody except me. Oh, thank you so much. You're so great. And then meanwhile, I get the whole, you Darren.
Fucker.
It's funny how that goes, but it is true. We'll see you getting all, waxing poetic about, life in general, philosophy. Yeah, there we go. Well, there we go. Welcome. Thanks for coming back to reality, Mary. But but what is good about it, though, what's good about that round table is it does give an opportunity, because I think someone mentioned on there, it's kind of like, we're all stuck in this COVID shit, and it's just never end. It's going to go on and on and on, apparently forever, I guess. But I think it's one of those things where you feel like it's a good community and group to talk with, kind of socially, and not at that intellectual, academic, nerdy, over the top level where it's pretentious. Like you feel like if you don't know all this stuff, you feel like intimidated. Now, everybody here who he knows has been studying this for almost their whole lives, like the rest of us, but it's still fun. You still have to have fun with it.
I learned so much from people. I mean, like Allie, who hasn't been studying it for as long as, what you and I have, like, I've learned a lot from her just from what she posts on Twitter. She posted that letter about, when Howard was going to possibly take over, there was talk about like replacing him, getting rid of Hooker and even Slocum and putting Howard in charge. And I had never seen that before. And that was really awesome to see. And, she was doing the Civil War what if thing too. So that was really cool. Like I've learned so much from the community, and that's what I love, is like, we can all learn from each other. And, cause I don't fucking know it all, and I never will. It's impossible.
No, and we definitely know people who kind of feel like they know everything,
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's just a good time. It's fun to talk about. I think it's certainly a passion of ours for you and I, and it's a certain, it's a passion for a lot of people too. And it's just a lot of fun to do. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's so much shit and negativity and so much friction right now in this country. I know you're over there and up at Santa's workshop up there.
Yeah.
But for
True
the most
Daddy
part,
Land.
True Daddy Land,
Was it?
I used to be able to do that.
I hated it when he cut his hair.
I mean, he's no G.K. Warren. I mean, I'll give him that, Mary.
No way. Nikki Six.
I don't know where the hell that came from you. I would drink with him, but that's it. Like, what the hell's that?
Like, I don't know.
What the hell?
Because I'm such an awkward person at times.
It's good to know you draw the lines. It's good to know you draw the line somewhere. I mean,
you got a couple. Allie said, yeah, Grant was very much a lightweight, and when he was out west, the whole situation was just depressing. Some of the letters he wrote to Julia during that time were incredibly sad. He just wanted to be with his family. Yeah, I've read some of those letters, Allie, and that was like, it clearly he was very depressed, and he obviously he turned probably to drinking, and I think he might have gambled a little bit too when he was drinking. But I mean, Halleck was another reason behind the rumors about Grant drinking. Like, and Halleck made everything fucking personal, right? So he had witnessed him drunk a few times and was like, I'm gonna take this shit and run with it.
Well, Halleck's one of those guys who I think got intimidated by anybody who he saw as a potential threat to him. And that was a common thing. This goes back to the McClellan thing a few weeks ago. It's a common theme with that administration, and I'm not talking about Lincoln personally, but just Stanton and Halleck specifically, whereas they didn't really know 100%. I don't want to say what they were doing, but they were kind of feeling their way through it. They felt the war was going to be a quick war, and they didn't want to piss off the South too much and destroy the entire South because of the economy. Yeah. But I think anybody who kind of came along who challenged that, especially when they failed, they blamed. So they would be, I'd say, Mara, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you, this. I want you to go build a house. I'm going to give you 3 pieces of plywood and 4 nails. Go build a house. And then, of course, you can't freaking do it. And they go, well, you're obviously failed. You're probably drunk. We're going to get someone else to do it. Yeah, that's what they were doing.
Yeah, that's it. They, the higher up you were, it's just like today, the higher up you are in a company, the more likely you are to have to take the blame for shit and all that. And, it was just like shit like that happened all the time. And we discussed it with the McClellan episode too, like just how, McClellan took a lot of blame that he probably shouldn't have. And too, like you look at somebody like Burnside, and we'll discuss this in December when we talk about Fredericksburg, Burnside's asking for pontoon bridges and he's not getting them. And then when they lost the battle, it fell completely on him, which there's a lot the administration was doing during that the blame rests on them too. Like you can't just blame one person for it.
And you have Burnside, this whole mud march, they couldn't move, and I guess it was his fault, Burnside's fault for the weather too, apparently. Yeah. So Dave Montrose, newbie here. I'm stuck living in a county named after Bobby Lee. Holy shit. So it's nice to go somewhere where we talk about the blue coats. Yeah, I can only imagine how that would be,
Yeah. Hi, Caroline. She's watching from Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio, home of the Ohio State University. She's probably a huge Michigan fan then, probably, right?
I think she's actually, if I'm thinking of the same person, she's a huge Ohio State fan.
I would imagine they probably are.
Ryan said, I'm in the midst of reading The Blue and the Gray on the Nile, disgraced Charles Stone and one-armed madman William Wing Loring and many others employed by the Khedive of Egypt to upgrade his army. He didn't want to rely on Europeans. Amazing stuff. Allie B said, I believe Grant didn't find Halleck's little telegrams with McClellan until after the war, and Grant was not happy about it for sure.
No, he mentioned William Loring. He said this is not anything we were talking about, but he's another guy though, because he's the guy during Vicksburg who vanished. He fell off the planet. So you have Grant going east to Jackson, Mississippi to take out the supply lines, and they work back towards Vicksburg. And this is the Battle of Champion Hill. And William Loring is one of the guys on that battle line of the Confederacy. And all of a sudden, he's gone. And they don't know. Pemberton has no idea where the hell he is. He literally fell off. His entire army fell off the planet. And they did not know where the hell they were. They went in the woods and they hid. You know what they did, Mary? They went in the corner.
That's what Pemberton needed to do.
Exactly. But
Pemberton had trouble finding stuff a lot.
But William Loring is an interesting one. There's a lot of these cool guys. William, then of course we were talking about Blackjack earlier.
Blackjack Logan. Yep.
I mean, he's another guy who we talked about with the March to the Sea about why he couldn't. There was that conversation. When the hell did we talk about that? We were talking about that with.
It was last week in the live. We were talking about how I was talking about how Blackjack didn't get picked to be the right. Obviously, Howard takes command after McPherson is killed, but Blackjack had brief command over that army for a while, and then Sherman said, "No, I want Howard in charge." And some people say it was just because Blackjack had not gone to West Point, but I think it was just because Blackjack was too much of a loose cannon and Howard was more of a soldier, that he's going to be calm, collected, follow orders.
Blackjack would have pillaged. He would have gone through there. He would have gone through house to house to house. He would have stolen everything. And he did not want, as much as Sherman gets a lot of shit from people, especially in Georgia and in the South in general. He was tunnel visioned. He had no supply line going through Georgia. He knew he couldn't spend a lot of time there. He had to move quick. He didn't have time to go fuck around and go through all that stuff. So if you had a guy like Logan, stalling in every town to rape and pillage the entire town and go through those stories we talked about before about the soldiers digging up the yard, digging up the bodies of their children. I mean that's the stuff they were trying to avoid. I think what Sherman wanted, he wanted to get it done quick. He wanted it to be done efficiently, and he knew a guy like Howard was not going to do that. He was going to get the job done. He was going to do exactly what they were going to do. To quote Bill Belichick, he was going to do his job. That's exactly what he was going to do.
and that's why he picked Slocum as well. Although, I think Sherman was a little bit more closer to Howard. I don't think he was as good of friends with Slocum as he was with Howard. Slocum was in charge of Atlanta for a while after they had taken the city of Atlanta, and he said that things were getting really quiet there. So he was thinking of doing his own raid into Georgia, and this was after Sherman had found out that he was going to be able to do the March to the Sea, but he had not brought Slocum into that conversation yet. It was basically on a need-to-know basis, and he felt like Slocum didn't need to know. Then he got wind of what Slocum was going to do, and he had to write him and say, dude, I'm fucking doing this March to the Sea. So you need to shut the fuck up and not send a raid into Georgia.
Yeah. Slocum is another guy. I mean, he's a guy who just did his job, kind of put his head down. He was obviously a guy, a Gettysburg guy who, doesn't get a lot of notoriety.
No.
Really for what his corps did there. But again, he's somebody who he's somebody who I think stayed in the background. You look at some of these battles and you really see the generals who are really pushing themselves, who are very guys like a Hancock, for example, who you can tell are very much into the post-war career.
Yes.
Right. And he obviously gets shot at Gettysburg. His final battles at Ream Station at Petersburg, and he was never the same after that. And he runs for president and loses to Garfield, right?
Yep, I think
1884,
so.
Yeah, 1881. Yeah.
And shout out to our good friends at the Garfield home in Mentor, Ohio.
Yeah, they're like our pals.
Yeah, them in battlefields, they've got their social media is just phenomenal. They're fun, There's a lot of fun follows on Twitter, obviously, but just for a national historic site like Garfield Home, and then for something like Battlefields, they've got some great social media. Are you reading the comments?
Amelia's on Team Beauregard. Good for you, Amelia. I was going to say, I read your first half of it, and I saw Beauregard. I'm like, who's this Beauregard guy? And I see Beauregard. Oh, he's Beauregard. Yeah. He's always going to be Beauregard.
Ryan's. Sorry. Go ahead.
Lost audio for a while. Buckeye. Today is the first game. Yeah, Ohio State. This another team is afraid to play Boston College. I get it. It's fine. I mean.
Ryan said Pemberton was one of those Northerners who goes south. Lots of chat about Unionist Southerners like Thomas, but the Northerners who back the wrong side aren't discussed as much. That's really true. You hear more about the Southerners that fought for the Union. Gibbon was one. Now, he was born in the North, but he lived in the South. His brothers fought for the South, but Gibbon, when he found out that the Civil War had broken out, he immediately did the oath to the Union, and he was like, I'm staying with the Union. And Buford from Kentucky, which I know was a border state, he fought for the Union too. And Buford was asked to fight for the South. He was offered a high up command. And Buford, which I'm still reading that biography about him, it's really, really good. The one thing about Buford is he did not advocate for himself at all. He just basically was like, okay, if I've got to do these shitty jobs, eventually I will get what I want, which he wanted a command, but he wasn't willing to lobby politicians for it. He didn't do any of that. And he finally did get what he wanted, unfortunately passed away. And I think it was December of 1863 from typhoid.
He was just a soldier is all he was.
Exactly. He was a soldier who he followed orders, and he was really good at being a quartermaster, which was a boring job. but he excelled at it, and that's why they kept giving him the job, and he recognized that. But he was also not going to be the, like, he's not going to be like Hancock or whoever and be like, hey, I want this command, or I want to be, he didn't want it. He also didn't want to be in the newspapers. Meade was a lot like that too.
So Jim commented this morning. Hey Jim, we were talking a few minutes ago about your tweet about Grant, about why we didn't pick him. The reason why we didn't, and that was by design. We just thought it was kind of an easy one. We wanted to stay some obscure ones. But he mentions Jefferson C. Davis. He'd be stone cold sober and then be ready to move very quickly. He'd be a very mean drunk. Well, considering how he did kill that guy in that hotel, I think he's probably not the type of guy, Jefferson C. Davis, that you really want to drink. He's a stabby, murdery type of drunk.
Stabby. He's like Claiborne, gets a little bit stabby.
Exactly. So, Allie, we of Pennsylvania do not associate with this so-called Pemberton. Who? Well, there's two John Pembertons. There's the one from Vicksburg, who we were just talking about. He was a Western commander in the Confederacy. The other John Pemberton is a guy who invented Coca-Cola.
Yes, we talked about that a few weeks ago.
So there are two John Pembertons. So Allie Pemberton is I assume your question is being serious. If not, then nothing wrong with that too. But he was a guy who helped. He was one of the guys who was defending. Ultimately, was the one who fought Grant to defend Vicksburg, which he lost. Ultimately, ended up resigning, but he had a lot of mistakes. That was the Vicksburg campaign. Good study though. It's a good book. If you want to read a book that goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, read Bloom's book on Vicksburg, because it's. I
was just about to chime in with this, but Allie was being sarcastic. I picked up on that. Yeah, she was. They don't like Pemberton. Who regard that's what people from Pennsylvania say about him, and the same with like Thomas, from Virginia, same state as Robert E. Lee, right? His sisters turned his pictures to the wall, and they were like, "That fucker we're done with him." And he, like, I've thought about starting a petition to have a General Thomas statue in Richmond. I've thought about it. I'm like,
is it going to be made of rock by any chance?
Oh, absolutely, granite.
You're going to put it in Richmond? Oh, okay. Good luck with that.
That's the change I want to see.
Never be good at what you don't want to do, or you'll be stuck at it. Dave, you just described my entire life. So thank you so much for that life lesson. I figured that out by now. But he's right though. Chase your passions, chase what you want to do, not because otherwise it's everybody who has a job knows that. But he's right. He's absolutely right with that one.
I mean, I'm one of these weird people that loves my job, but I work in a library and I work.
I don't hate my job. It's just I want to be doing. I mean,
but I can also I'm lucky that I can come home and do this. Well,
you work at the Dairy Queen and freaking kill cartons. So that's got to be a lot of fun. I mean.
Hey Leonard, Leonard brings the memes all the time. He's already done 3 awesome memes for the show so far.
Oh, he has been. He's done a really good job.
Yeah.
Just reading some of these more comments here, but I think it's a lot of fun to talk about this stuff. And like we were saying, going back to the podcast again, was the specific stories about some of these drinking stories, and I mean all these guys are regular people. I think it all goes back to what we were saying. One of these times with these conversations we've had, Mary, was these people were the same as they are today. They're the same. I mean, they drank, they ran around, they looked for ways to get out of doing stuff.
They had senses of humor. They were fun. I mean, Howard, reading his memoirs, he comes across as having a very self-deprecating sense of humor. And you can tell, and he totally admits in a way only OO can, to being a little shit as a kid. Like he was the kid that got into fights, and he was constantly would kind of fight back against some stuff his parents would say to him. But at the same time, he find out that the reason he's an abolitionist is because his parents were abolitionists too. And there was an escaped slave one time that his father found, and he had a little boy with him. Mm-hmm. And Howard grew up with that little boy. And Howard basically was the type of person that his dad just taught him not to see color, but to look at a person's personality. And that's how Howard lived his life.
That's good advice right there. Yeah. But Maine was a hotbed of abolitionism. I mean, Maine is a classic New England state with that. And that's something that's always the case. Yeah. Hey, Leonard.
Amelia said, I'm Cajun, so it does pain me a little to not pronounce Beauregard the French way, but I'm totally down with making fun of him. He's not Cajun, but French Creole, which is a whole conversation. Better to be Cajun and hence partly Canadian. Am I right? Absolutely.
Amelia's awesome. She's right. She's absolutely right. Cajun. So that's like Louisiana, right?
Leonard said, can't hang out long this morning as the awesome wife has many errands. Love the episode, though. Thank you, Leonard.
Oh,
Always
good.
appreciate you stopping
It's good you
by.
get to stop by. It's always fun.
We've already mentioned the Bang Barn a couple times, too. A little big Bang Barn.
Hey, speaking of Leonard, tell your awesome wife about the Bang Barn. She'll appreciate that story.
Didn't he win a trip to the Bang Barn the last time?
Hey, I can't draw those errands today. I got to go hang out with Darren and Mary at the Bang Barn. Yeah, go ahead and do that. Enjoy that. That'll end well. I'm going to guess you're going to have more errands to do tomorrow if you say that. Or better yet, no errands at all. But anyway, thanks for stopping by anyway. That's always a good thing.
Ryan said, I always thought Meager's increasing drinking problem was some form of PTSD. I mean, I'd need to be floating before I'd ride at the front of a brigade, riding into the front of the line. I would too. Like, I honestly don't know how some of them did it. Like,
no, I mean, the thing about all these stories, and we talk about the drinking and all that stuff, but the overall endless bravery stuff, and I know, and if you read the soldier stories, 90% of what they talk about is how it was boring in camp. Mm-hmm. They fried lice on pans, had lice races, all the stuff they talk about, all the stuff they do up there in Canada. You guys probably still do.
That's absolutely what we do. I'm having lice races this afternoon, actually, and I'm.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing.
Well, tailgate for that.
Lice farm.
But when they talk about the actual battles, though, they talked about some of the heroic stories. I've always wondered, to be honest, these Medal of Honor guys, right? These really heroic dudes. Did the thing that they made them famous that day? Think of a Bigelow at Gettysburg, or Van Ellis at Gettysburg, or think about a Lytle at Chickamauga, right? If they did this today, could they do it again tomorrow? Mm-hmm. Was it a moment in time that made them do whatever the heroic thing they did, or is that just who they were? I think of some of these stories, and the one I think about a lot, well, not about a lot, but from time to time, is the Augustus Van Hornello story. From 124th New York at Gettysburg and the Triangular Hill, where his Cromwell, his subordinate, says, get off the horse. No, the men need to see us today. And he rides down the hill ahead of his army with his sword over his head, and he gets killed. And it spurs on his army. I mean, who can do that?
I know.
Was it something he did because he was something he was going to definitely do, or is it a pop in his head and I just have to do this now and I know what's going to happen? And I always wondered, if what they did today, they could, if they didn't do it today, they could do it tomorrow, or if it was not a whim, but it was a moment of inspiration overall. You know what I mean? And that's the thing I always think about with these guys.
Well, I think I going back to 00, when he was going into his, I think it was first bull run, and he had a moment where he was scared. Mm-hmm. And then he realized, I can't be scared. I have to lead my men. And this is when his faith really too became even stronger. And when the Civil War broke out, he was really going back and forth between staying in the army or becoming, involved with the church. His wife didn't want him to do that. But then when the Civil War broke out, he saw that as a sign from God that he was meant to fight. And that was what he was meant to do in life. And he said he went into battle once scared, and he never did again. And he just used his faith, which is one of the reasons why I admire him so much, because he stuck by his faith in all the shit he went through, being called the pious, the Christian general. And some of that, I'm sure, were backhanded comments. And admittedly, I'm not Christian, I'm not religious, but that's one thing I admire him for, that it's taught me, stand by what you believe and what you love, and don't let others bring you down. That's how Howard was. But to think of the stuff he did, we're talking about a Medal of Honor winner here, from Fair Oaks, what he did at Gettysburg, where that guy was take that flag up, or was it take the flag up there? And the guy's like, I don't know where I'm going. And Howard just got off his horse and went up there with him.
Yeah. I mean, that's a story. This soldier goes, Howard, take those colors down to that wall. And he goes, I ain't fucking you. Out of your friggin' mind. And he didn't sit there and say, well, I'm the general. He's like, well, we'll do it together. He grabs a flag. and he goes.
Yeah, and then you think about somebody like Lytle at Chickamauga, who is out riding in front of his troops to rally them on, saying like, keep going, and he ends up dying.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because, but when he dies, his troops break. They're like, we can't, and they ran back to Chattanooga. Like in some cases, I think they realize that they have to put their lives on the line in order to keep the motivation going with the troops.
There comes a point when you have to show personal leadership, right?
Exactly.
And you have to say, I need to be, and that was Van Hornello's line. He goes, the men need to see me today, right? Yeah. And all these guys, when you talk about, Claiborne of the East over there, TJ, they talked about.
I took shit for that from somebody.
Yeah, you did. Making fun of the almighty Thomas
TJ.
Stonewall Jackson.
But again, that's why it's
hallowed
good.
Be thy name.
But again, that's why it's good to read about these guys and study them, because I do. And I mean, if somebody admires Stonewall Jackson, that's their opinion. I'm never gonna say they're wrong, because they're not. It's what they think. It's how they're interpreting what they're reading. When I interpret what I'm reading about Claiborne, I do see him as being probably the best that the Confederacy had after Albert Sidney Johnston.
He probably did. And Dave says, there are times when a corps commander's life does not count. Obviously, that's Hancock's quote. Yeah. And that's a pretty good quote, too.
It is.
And they had that in the movie, the Gettysburg movie. And what was pretty cool about that scene was the soldier ran up to him and said, get off the horse, we cannot spare you. You know who that was in the scene?
No, who was that?
It was Ken Burns.
Oh, that's right. His cameo in that movie.
That was bad acting. Get off the horse. General, we cannot spare you. Who else had a cameo in that scene was Ted Turner, wasn't that movie?
Mm-hmm.
He had the scene where he got shot.
And you learned last week that James Bond, George Lazenby, was in the movie.
I Googled him. I Googled him yesterday. I just did.
Lazenby.
And I still don't know who the hell he is. And I mean, I'll be honest, I've seen like 2 James Bond movies. I watched The Man with the Golden Gun.
It's a bad one.
Octopussy, because wasn't what I thought.
Those are bad. You got to watch like the ones with Sean Connery, and then watch Lazenby.
There was the other one I saw. The one with the was the guy who played Tattoo in Fantasy Island or one of them, or am I crazy? Where he played some little
he was
guy.
an Octopussy, I think. I
remember that one.
James Bond. I've been watching them since I was like 5 years old, which my mom would walk in if my dad was like looking after me, and she would come home from like grocery shopping, and we'd be sitting there watching James Bond, and she would just be like, what the hell are you doing? She's 5.
I never got into that. Al Paganelli signed on, the birthday boy.
Happy birthday, Al.
Happy birthday to you.
No, we're not.
Today's
I'm not
Al.
singing. I've not
you'll sing later on, I'm sure. But Al, today's Al's birthday, and yes. he is the commander of the Civil War Lampoon Facebook page. Which if you're into history and you like to have fun, please check out Civil War Lampoon and sign on, because it is the most intelligent comic Facebook page there is. So, and
you'll get to see Darren's awesome memes that he makes all the time.
Oh, we have fun with that. Not just me. I'm just happy to be a part of the team. It's a good group. But happy birthday, Al. Thanks.
Leonard said, I think Tom Custer could have done his acts every day, won his medal, 2 medals of honor 3 days apart. Yeah, that's a good point too. Right there. Yeah. And then Paul chimed in, man with golden gun had tattoo in it. Nick Nack was his character in Gun. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Man with the Golden Gun is like, I think that's Connery.
I did see that one.
My dad's favorite is Thunderball. My
friend Chris, he used to love the James Bond movies, and so when we were kids, we used to watch them. I've only watched a couple. I never got into them. I don't know why. I guess it was because they kept changing the actors, and there was one that not too long ago, like Tomorrow Never Dies or Tomorrow Never Comes.
With Pierce Brosnan,
yeah. And I never saw that. That was like the last time I was aware of one. They're kind of like those Mission Impossible movies, which it shouldn't be called impossible because they solve it every fucking time. But that's another story. Like the Never-Ending Story movie, it friggin' ended. Should I get my money back? But that's another story.
Well, Lazenby as Bond I wish he had stayed on over Roger Moore, because I really liked him. And I remember watching Gettysburg when I was a kid and being like, that's James Bond.
Yeah.
Jonathan said, I saw Gettysburg, and this scene where Ted Turner gets shot brought the theater to their feet cheering. And Ryan said, I'm interested in why you would rate Albert Sidney Johnston. I thought getting shot did wonders for his reputation. I thought he badly spread his forces, so he was outnumbered everywhere. Then when he did concentrate before Shiloh, he just left Beauregard to do all the planning and didn't stop the ludicrous advance in divisional lines. And Leonard's taken off. See you, Leonard. Thanks for stopping by.
Definitely.
Enjoy your errands.
I think the thing with ASJ, Albert Sidney Johnson, was the potential and what he possibly could have offered later on. Yeah. Now, back in 1862, none of these guys, Grant wasn't Grant, Sherman wasn't Sherman. And so I think it's kind of like, I think he was like a football or a baseball rookie who had a ton of potential. I think that Shiloh would have won if they didn't have those 2 days of thunderstorms that slowed the Confederacy. Yeah. I think that's the weather helped them out with that. Mm-hmm. They did have Shiloh basically beat after the first day.
Yeah.
Obviously, Don Carlos Buell's guys arrived. And if it wasn't for that storm, they wouldn't have got there in time. And so I think everything lined up well. I've always liked Albert Sidney Johnson because I always thought that he had the potential. Now, no one knows. This is our opinion. But I've always thought he had the potential to offer significant Western competition for Grant and for Sherman. Yeah. And it also is because of the biohazard dumpster fire of generals they had in the West at the time, from Bragg to Joseph Johnston to Pemberton to all these guys. And so I think you look at a guy who I think potentially could have, and again, we don't know. It's just an opinion thing.
Yeah. I agree with you about.
But that's why I think highly of Johnston. And a lot of it is because the Kurt Cobain thing, where he died early and he always wondered what he could have done. And he'll always be young and he'll always have potential and he'll never fail and all that. Yeah. And there's probably some of that too. But I think it's a comparison to what the South actually brought to the West and what Johnson's background was and what he could have done. I think that's just to be too wordy, but that's how I've always looked at Albert Sidney Johnson. And I think if he survived Shiloh, and again, no one knows, I think he would have been more of a significant speed bump for Grant than ultimately these other guys would have been. That's all.
I think Vicksburg would have been a lot harder. It's kind of like, we discussed the what if Claiborne had been the one in charge at Atlanta. I think Sherman would have had a tough time. Like, Claiborne, he made mistakes at Chickamauga. He didn't always have good days, but you look at him at Ringgold Gap where he's outnumbered 3-1 by Hooker's forces. And he manages to beat them back and basically save the retreating Confederate army. And that's what Bragg basically went to him and said, like, dude, this is on your fucking shoulders. You have to save us. And that's not the first time that Claiborne had to do that. Some people say he was passed over for command because he was Irish, but the level of respect that I see for him, just in what I've read about him, is pretty high for a guy that was not educated at West Point. He's commanding with men who are educated at West Point. One of his best friends is Hardy. But I think the reason he was passed over for command was because of what Walker did with taking that, his emancipation to Jeff Davis and telling Jeff Davis, this guy is not good politically and he's not fighting for the same cause as us. Because when Claiborne brought that up in this meeting, which Joseph Johnston was in the meeting, and everybody went silent, and Johnston was basically like, dude, you cannot this does not leave this room. This could be treason. This could be, you could be shot for this. And, I think it speaks to what Claiborne thought of the war as well, which is why he's such an interesting study.
See, Al says, could Lee beat the incompetence in the East before incompetence lost the West? That's a slippery slope question right there, because I'm not sure how much incompetence in the East as it was administrative meddling in the East.
Yeah,
that slowed them down. But I wonder, if Lee was in the West, I think that would have been a totally different ball game.
Oh,
to be honest, I think that would have been a totally different ball game.
And the only reason Lee is brought in is because JJ, as I like to call it, Joseph E. Johnston, gets shot and he's wounded.
Yeah, but again, the good thing about this is you can do the what if thing forever and ever and ever. I mean, some of the what ifs are kind of easy to kind of work through, just in my own personal opinion. But I think the entire Confederate effort in the West was trying to find a competent general that could balance off Lee in the East. And again, people don't realize, there were 22 Confederate armies in the Confederacy. There wasn't just one or two. There was 22. Now, obviously, Lee's Army of Northern Virginia is the big one. Obviously, Army of Tennessee, all the ones and the big ones in the West too. But I think the big ones there. I think that if they could have found someone to balance it a little bit off, kind of the way you ultimately had Sherman and Grant at the end of the war. If you could have had Lee and Johnston, I don't know, maybe. Who knows?
I think the perfect balance, and again, I'm biased here, would have been Lee Claiborne. That would have been that would have been for me, that would have been the balance right there, is if you put Claiborne in charge.
Okay, that's fair.
Allie said, no, Mission Impossible is great. I love watching Tom Cruise death divings. Ryan said, as he was a close friend of Davis, West Point roommate, I think I started prejudice. I wouldn't say you're prejudiced, Ryan. I thought your question was great, like asking about it. And that's why it's great to discuss this, because this is how we learn, is through discussing stuff.
There's no right or wrong answer. It's just opinional stuff. And it doesn't mean that anybody's right or wrong. Anybody who tells you flat out, this is wrong, this is right, has no fucking idea what they're talking about.
Yep. Team Wheaton is in the house. Ben's here. Hey, Ben.
Did you know Ben Frail liked Frank Wheaton? I didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't know that. That's news to me. Well, hey Ben, how are you? Pride of the Ocean State, Rhode Island.
Allie said, Gary Gallagher has my favorite answers to what if Jackson was at Gettysburg. He says, well, he would have been a rotting corpse in a casket. No.
See? She's got it. She's got it. She figured it out. Next time you're on a battle walk, okay, and someone asks that question, that's the answer you tell him. He'd be dead. He wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
And his arm is still buried, by the way, in Chancellorsville.
I wonder where Howard's arm is. I mean, I know he had the bionic arm.
He's probably up on the moon, right?
Probably.
With all that cheese.
He got it back.
He got it back. No, but I forget what the hell I was going to say.
Hey, man.
Yeah, Amelia. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Amelia brings up Shiloh was such an interesting battle for both sides. Shelby Foote's start as a writer was a fiction. She mentioned Shelby Foote, and his book on Shiloh, to be honest, is probably the one Civil War book I read I just didn't like. It was a fictional book, and the way it was put together, it just wasn't right all good. But again, he has that three volume set that's really good. The Stars and His Courses on Gettysburg is really good.
Yeah, she mentions the 3-volume set.
Yeah.
Shiloh
is a fascinating battle because again, I don't know what you want to talk about divide and intervention, but I'll tell you right now, if they didn't have that 2-day torrential storm that slowed the Confederacy down, they would have pushed them right into Pittsburgh Landing, right into the water, and I don't think Grant does it. I think I think they got lucky on that one, to be honest.
Well, Grant and Sherman both make mistakes there. Like there was that so the day before the battle, one of his aides had heard, or one of the soldiers from an Ohio regiment, he was sure he saw the Confederates. He was sure he heard them. I think it was when Claiborne had his oops, I'm getting a little bit too trigger happy here, and he had to pull back. But the guy from Ohio goes to Sherman, and he's like, I think shit's gonna go down. Like I think we're gonna have a battle. And Sherman just says to him, take your damned regiment back to Ohio. And then the next day he's out riding the lines, and one of his staff gets his head taken off by a cannonball, and Sherman's just all, shit, we're attacked.
See, this is the part of the show when the alcohol starts to kick in with Mary a little bit and she gets all fired up.
I also get fired up because it's Sherman. He's my second favorite.
I know. He's your second favorite? I thought Claiborne was your second favorite. I thought it went Howard, Claiborne, Sherman.
It goes Howard, Sherman. And then on the Union side, my favorite Western Theater commander is Thomas. My favorite Eastern Theater commander is Meade. And then on the Confederate side, the one I love to study, which Claiborne's pretty equal with Sherman, is admittedly, like, I like to study Claiborne.
It is so possible to keep up with you sometimes with your fascinations.
I'm completely
wrapped in a riddle.
I am.
So yeah, Wheaton's a good guy. He doesn't need a bionic arm. Well, probably could have used one though.
Paul said, I agree, not a fan of Foote Shiloh. Well, it's interesting that's how he got his start though. So yeah, good for Amelia.
I mean, I like.
Hey, Jay Price is here.
Oh, McClellan fangirls here. Cool.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
She's good.
Yeah, she's never gonna let that one down.
Amelia said, I think Foote was not a great fiction writer. His books certainly did not sell. He, on the other hand, had a very high opinion of his fictional work. I mentioned before he was a little bit of a dick. Yeah, he was. I do have his 3-volume set, and I haven't read it yet. I want to, but obviously I'm going to take what he says with a grain of salt. I enjoyed him on Ken Burns' Civil War. I could listen to that man make the phone book. But
yeah,
again,
he's very lost causey anyway.
Oh,
I mean,
is.
I always liked Shelby Foote. I mean, obviously he got his name because of that. I always thought it was weird, like he refused to sign autographs in his books. He would go to book signings, but yet not sign the books, which I don't understand why the hell that's all about. But Catton to Foote, Paul, I would agree with that. Catton's a little dry. I mean, it's you know, there are so many guys you can read as far as that stuff goes. But I liked him though. But I remember growing up thinking like Shelby Foote was like the guy, like he was. But then as I got older and I read more, I'm like, he's not really the guy. He's very, he's like a more modern Douglas Sofall Freeman. But he's a little more conversational. He's a little more laid. He's like your drunken Southern grandfather who just rambles about shit. But they're interesting stories.
Yeah, you just sit there and listen, even though you know they're probably bullshit. Ryan said regarding Shiloh, if they had advanced in a different formation, the divisional lines means the supports were from entirely different divisions, causing more than average confusion about who's in command of each section of the line once the supports come up. It's a real rookie mistake by Beauregard. Yeah, Beauregard. He'd made mistakes.
But they were all rookies at the time. That's the thing. If this was 1864 or something like that, these guys were, I mean, they would deal with mass defections and shirkers and that they were still dealing with all that stuff back then. I mean, it really didn't until really late 62 when they all kind of really hunkered down and realized, okay, this is what this is now. I again, and we talked, I know we were talking before during the round table the other day about my comments about how if McClellan had come later in the war, he might have been more of a hero. And I do stand by that. I think that
I see your point of view on that.
I think that when McClellan was, Jen's going to get all excited talking about McClellan here. So,
well, she just said she was running kind of like when G. McSee saw a bug. Just to let you know, Jen, Darren was talking shit about you running, saying like, why wouldn't you drive? It gets you there quicker.
It is true. Why run when you can drive? But just saying, okay.
Good for her.
But she's good. She's really cool.
I'm Team Jay Price.
Jay Price will be a guest on the podcast, as I understand it. Speaking of Jay Price, she's going to be our first ever guest as we talk about ghosts in the Civil War next week, which is pretty funny. So
just like she was our first ever live audience for our sibling podcast, The Rail Splitter.
Amelia Dick, he was a dick. That's what he was about. He was a boot. Oh, she really caught on quick.
Amelia, wow, Amelia. High five.
That's a great quote right there. I have to make that my Facebook status update later on.
Yeah. Hi to Mike, who's watching. And then Jim said, the thing about Grant and Sherman at Shiloh is, yes, they made massive errors, but they learned from them and didn't repeat them. Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true.
Oh, speaking of Beauregard, okay, one of his biggest criticisms is when he retreated from Corinth the way he did, but he retreated in the face of the enemy, and he did the whole fake logs as guns thing and retreated out, and that's a hard thing to do. But he got labeled a coward for that, and he would have got his army killed, and that's just the way it was. Mike, Arlington, Virginia, home of the cemetery where people are dying to just get in. Oh, that's pretty funny.
High five for that one too. Hi, Charles.
Well, it's like that joke where the airplane crashes into the cemetery and they found 850,000 bodies. God. Whatever the hell the stupid joke is.
But to Jim's point, though,
oh God.
But to Jim's point, though, about that they made massive errors, but they learned from them and didn't repeat them. That's so true, and that I think that's what sets, when one of these generals makes an error, if they learn from it, they never make it again. But if they don't learn from it, then they're not, like, obviously we all know what happens from that. And Claiborne too made errors at Shiloh. Like, he got a little bit trigger happy and all that, but he learned from that. And that's what sets the great ones apart from the not so great ones. Well,
do you think though that Grant learned at Cold Harbor though? I mean, he was fighting. He still did that front attack that got all those guys killed. I mean, I think there comes a point when you learn from your mistakes. But I think there comes a point you're like, fuck it, I got to do what I got to do. I mean, this is going to be bad, but there's only one way to do this. And it's one thing. You look at a guy like a Sherman who loves to attack on the flank and maneuver and all that stuff. But I think Grant, he came off some bad losses, lost a lot of guys.
Yeah.
But again, 1864 Overland Campaign, he does that front on a charge attack right at Cold Harbor and got all those guys slaughtered. I mean, I don't think it's a question he didn't know that was going to happen. I think that was, you know, guy's got to do what a guy's got to do, and we have no other choice.
Yeah, no, I think and I think that's where he was like, we got to end this war, no matter what the cost is, and who knows what pressure was on him and Meade, because Meade is involved in these decisions as well. Like, it's not just on Grant's shoulders. Like, Meade is still commanding the AOP at this point, you know, and there's probably a lot of pressure from Washington. And, you know, you keep in mind, like, there's so much, and I think this was brought up in the roundtable the other night too, you know, they are under so much more pressure because of the location. Yeah. Because the press is closer, you know, Washington's closer, and all that too.
Well, Allie makes a point. It's interesting about McClellan. Now, the thing about him, right, you know, what I was saying early in the war and after the war was McClellan catches shit for taking 2 months to go up the peninsula to get Richmond. And they said he was slow, he was doddering. It took Grant 9 months, 9. And no one talks about him being slow. No one talks about him being dawdling. Oh. And so I think it goes back to the historical memory thing, where people still assumed the first half of the war that this was supposed to be a quick war, a slow war, a fast war, and McClellan just slowing it down for some reason.
Yeah.
And I think they realized after Mac was gone that this was going to be a long war, kind of like to Sherman's point all along. So that was my point about how if you flipped Grant and McClellan, historically how it would have been. Obviously, he's not Grant. McClellan's not Grant. I'm not saying that's what he freaking is either. But all I'm saying is I think McClellan gets a bad rap because I think the mentality at the time was different than it was later in the war. And I think he's kind of a victim of that.
Yeah. But Allie makes a good point here, too. She says, I just don't know if he would ever fallen in line with the administration regarding emancipation. That's true. McClellan is a Democrat. He doesn't agree with emancipation. And going hard after the South. I try thinking of him going forward after the wilderness, and I just don't see it happening, but who knows? That's a really good point too that I didn't really think of, is McClellan's politics are completely different from Grant's. And again, this is why I love doing these Facebook Lives and having this group to kind of hang out with and talk about this stuff, is like McClellan and Grant have very different thoughts on slavery. And that, you know, I think that played into how McClellan obviously was fighting the war. But again, like, who knows, 1864, if he's still in charge, is he going to be a little bit different? Is he going to have changed his ways? You know, that's a really good point.
Al says Grant did say later he regretted the last assault at Cold Harbor. And he's right. But you know something? He knew what he had to do. It reminds me a lot of, you know, of Hancock, the first Minnesota at Gettysburg, where he showed up at the reunion after the war.
Yep.
And 84% casualties, first Minnesota at Gettysburg. And he's like, yeah, I got you guys all killed, but I would do it again because it had to be done. This is what had to be done. So Grant probably did regret it. I mean, I know he did say it later, so he did.
Yeah.
But I think he knew that at that point, I don't think he did this and made a mistake in doing it. I think he knew it had to be done. He probably felt bad about it because he mentioned it later. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do, unfortunately. That's just the way it is.
Ryan said, no real war fighting or war gaming theory on the curriculum at West Point prior to the Civil War. So they really didn't have any idea about managing these huge formations. That's true. Wonder if Little Mac's experience observing the Crimean War gave him any advantage. It could very well have done that. Like,
well, you know you're studying history at a certain level when you see trends, right? And you see, like, for example, Reynolds, and he left that quote, and I know we're going back to Gettysburg again, which we tend to do, but he was going to barricade the streets of Gettysburg and use the town as a way to slow the Confederacy down to get to East Cemetery Hill and Cemetery Hill. That's the whole point. And we saw later in World War I, obviously World War II, Vietnam, in the jungles, we use natural barriers to slow the enemy down.
Yeah.
But the Civil War was really the first one in American history, really. I know there was some fighting in the Revolutionary War in towns in 1812 and Washington, all that. But where Reynolds knew that he could use the town and the streets to slow the Confederacy. And so you had street to street fighting. You can go in the buildings and that gets away from that Napoleonic shoulder to shoulder, you know, file closers type of style. And I think that was a big part of it. I think he, I'll let Jim be back in a little while, guys. Well, look at that. She's like Cher. She comes and she goes, and she's just. But yet I'm the diva. Okay, Jen, fine.
Jay Price.
You know what? She's a ghost. She disappeared. Otherwise, we have her on next week.
Jim said, my mom introduces me as her son that spends more time in cemeteries than most dead people. Jim, you're in good company. Darren and I both love going to cemeteries. Absolutely good company. I know Jay Price does too. I know other people as well. I love.
And you can go there now and still maintain 6 feet social distancing.
As Paul said, that was some grave humor.
Oh, geez. Tip your waitresses on that one.
Amelia said, Ryan Diamond, this Beauregard was a true believer in his West Point technical training, maybe more so than most. Yeah. Allie said, speaking of historical memory, it seems like people think that once Grant got east, that dealing with the administration was easier. But if you look into it, he had some struggles regarding how he wanted to do things. The whole thing with Banks was just a mess.
Well, be nice to Banks. He's from my hometown.
You shit all over Banks all the time.
Nathaniel Banks, he is a mess. He's a complete fucking mess. But he is from the great Waltham, Massachusetts, so I have to be nice to him. And,
yeah, you shit all over him all the
time. You know what? Mary, I'm a balanced person. I can see it both sides. What was I look for? Fucking hell. But Nathaniel Banks was a mess, obviously.
Yeah, Paul says 6 feet under social distancing.
Yeah, exactly. You can spend the whole day.
I think Paul was on our round table the other night too.
He was.
Yes.
I believe.
Ryan, Somerville's book Bull Run to Boer War is great on the trends and lessons learned by the British Army from the Civil War. Between Allie B and Ryan, and as well Allie K, I think we've got some competition for the Civil War book enabling thing here.
Well, no one's going to take over that title from the Goddess of the North with that one.
And you.
Not so much me. Well, maybe I don't know me. I mean, I've thrown a couple of books your way, but there's probably like a 10-to-1 ratio at this point.
Yeah, and we have a Jessica watching. Hello.
Oh,
thank you.
Hello, Jessica. Thanks for stopping by. As Veronica Silver Cornerstone would say back in the day.
Yeah, there's some great books.
You'd be cool if you can call that one, Mary.
Nope.
You're not cool. It's from Anchorman.
I've never seen that movie.
Oh, all right. Well, that's on the list. You ever seen Anchorman? You ever seen Anchorman?
No.
What kind of shit show are you running? That's a good movie. The first movie. The second one sucked, but the first one was really, really good. I'm just telling you. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like Grant. Yeah, Grant. I had a tough time dealing with the administration too. Lincoln had changed by that point with how he was dealing with the war. I really believe now, after doing the McClellan episode, that Lincoln's huge holy shit, I need to back the fuck off a little bit was when he wrote that letter to Meade, didn't send it, and then realized that McClellan, like Meade was going through the same thing McClellan had gone through with the supplies, the tired army, and that maybe Lincoln shouldn't be sitting in Washington being like, you need to fucking pursue.
Well, there's the pre-1864 election Lincoln and the post-1864 election Lincoln too. Yep. I mean, once he got reelected, a lot of things changed. Cedar Creek happened 1864. It stopped Jubal early. Mm-hmm. The election at that point was pretty much secured. He became a lot more relaxed because he wasn't facing an electorate again. And we see how this election here, which is mercifully coming to an end in a few weeks.
Thank God. Man. We're all going to breathe a sigh. Like, we're all up in Canada. We're like, how's this going to go?
We'll see. But I think the reality is, though, is Lincoln before the election, I think most of the decisions he made, and I think this is opinion, not fact. So Lincoln people, don't come at me, okay? I think a lot of what he did was to secure his election. And I think just like all these politicians are. Absolutely. And I think once he got elected, I think he realized then the pressure was off a little bit. He put a little more but then he had the guys he wanted. He had Grant in the East, he had Sherman in the West. He had the people in charge of what he wanted, and he let them kind of do it. But she's right, though. Amelia's right. There was a lot of meddling that was still going on by Lincoln in the East in after his election too.
That was Allie B.
Oh, Allie, I'm sorry. I apologize. Allie B. I'm sorry to question your valor, Allie B. But to her point, though, I think there still was a lot of it, but I think it must have been a little bit different. It must have felt a little bit different. I think the pressure was off a little bit because they also knew they were going to win the war. It was a matter of time.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah, they knew by that point.
It was a when and not an if versus after, you know, Antietam, those battles where it was like, fuck it, we don't think this is going to freaking happen, you know?
Yeah. Ryan said, book and beer enabling today. It's black sheep milk stout from a proper British dimpled pint glass. You go.
Jesus H, that's fantastic.
Geez, if we ever get over to England, we need to go hang with Ryan.
That'd be pretty cool, actually. Go down to England. I've never been to England.
I have twice.
Really? Those are my people, Mary.
Yep. I was actually, so I went over for the first time when I was 9 months old. I was baptized over there.
Oh, really?
And then I went over, my grandpa and I went over when I was 10 and spent like 5 weeks. Summer I turned 11 actually. So I got to run around like an idiot in the countryside for 5 weeks. It was amazing.
Glad that's changed.
And I remember the one thing we did is we went to old cemeteries all the time. My aunt and I used to walk her dog Meg through old cemeteries because Meg liked to chase trains. And there was this one cemetery we always went to, and the train would come by at like 7 o'clock at night. And my aunt would just let her go to chase the train, but there was a fence that stopped her.
I'm sure a lot of people who are on this live right now, I know because you and I have talked about it a million times. Isn't there something very, I don't know what the phrase is or word is, therapeutic, peaceful about being in an old cemetery?
Absolutely.
And I don't know what it is, but there, you know, I remember when I was, I don't say younger, because I would still do it even today, where I'll drive by some old, and here in New England, they're all over the place, all these old cemeteries. And so I'll pull over and I'll just walk through there and then basically, and I'll find these old places, you know, no baptism in Canada. You know why, Paul? Because they're all heathens in Canada. That's why. They're all heathens.
No, my parents wanted me to be baptized in the same church that my grandfather had been baptized in and that they were married in. My dad's British.
They're married in England?
Yeah, they went
really?
Over. Yeah, so my mom was born in Canada, but
old Mamu and Dadu were married in England?
Yeah, so they went over to England to get married, and all my mom said to her mother was, I might come back married. She bought her wedding dress like 2 days before she was married. They came back married. So they got married in this church where my grandpa had been baptized in. It was an Anglican church. So my grandpa and I my parents are Presbyterian, but I was baptized Anglican.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, I'm the only, in the Fincher family, I'm the only Anglican.
Wow.
Everybody else is Presbyterian, but I was baptized Anglican.
But there is a really cool, I think I've told you this before. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but the only two Gettysburg veteran deaths who were killed at Gettysburg on Cape Cod, where I live, are buried like 200 yards away from where I live. Every day I go for my walk, and every day I go see them. And I put flags on their graves every Memorial Day, and that they're still there. And one of them was in 1st Massachusetts, who fought along the Emmitsburg Road. The other one was in the 2nd Mass, who fought down at Spangler Spring. They both got killed there, so I get to do that. But walking in old cemeteries and seeing the regiments and imagining where they fought. What was that place? I was out there in like Amherst that day. Remember?
Oh, yeah, when you went to see, you went to Treehouse.
Went to Treehouse. Yeah. Of course, I went to Treehouse.
You were in line for like an hour and a half, and I kept you company via video.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so you were driving back, and you saw the Civil War monument, and you like literally like he's got me on video, and he's like running towards this monument.
That was a good day though, but there's something about going to an old cemetery that's really, really cool. You know what's pretty cool in this area? Obviously Boston. We were the Boston one last weekend, right? Remember that? We saw
I was awesome. Yeah, I got a tour of Boston. I can't travel right now, but Darren took me to Boston last weekend via video, and I got to see I saw the grave of Ben Franklin's parents. Paul Revere's grave. I was like in heaven. I'm like, this is
John
amazing.
Hancock, mother, a whole bunch of them. James Otis got struck by lightning. That was a fun day, but there's something cool. But the other place to go that's really cool here is Salem. Especially this time of year, the old Salem graves, you can see all the witches and the Mark and Warmo and the gravestones and all the witch people. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
some comments. Allie said once that election happened, Grant was able to punt Spoon's butler out of there. I love how she puts things. That's awesome. And Ryan said if COVID passes, the Royal Small Arms Factory here in Enfield will reopen, and you can see where the vastly superior Enfield was produced. Springfield sucked. God save the Queen, etc. Yeah, I think we definitely need to go out, hang out with Ryan. And yeah, Ryan, if you ever come over to the US, we can do a battlefield thing sometime. Jay Price is listening, but she can't comment. Now's your chance to make fun of her again, Darren. Hi, David.
No, definitely.
Jonathan said, I have Zook and Hancock buried 3 blocks from me here in Norristown, PA. Ben, I'm glad I'm not the only one who does that for monuments.
Am I frozen?
You were, briefly.
Oh, okay. But it's Zook, not Zook, by the way. Actually.
Do you know that there's a difference in pronunciation in that letter?
Oh, by the way, just so you know, it's not Kearney, it's Carney, by the way.
Fucker. Look at the diva bitch, though.
Okay. But Salem is great. You were up there in college. Salem, where did you go to? Did you go to Salem State, Allie? Where did you go to college? You have to chime in here.
Jim said he's descended from a Salem witch, Rebecca Nurse. That's cool.
No way, Rebecca Nurse.
Wow, cool.
You want to read about a shitty fucking deal? Read the Salem witch trials.
Oh,
and you know, the place where they were hanged and they weren't burned. People think they don't burn witches here in Massachusetts. We just hang them because we're way more civilized here.
Yeah.
But the site of the hangings is actually behind like a 7-Eleven now, and you can still climb the hill and no one knows unless you really know your history. You don't know where the hell it even is. The site of the hangings of the Salem witches are actually in a town called Danvers, which is next town over, but it's pretty cool. It's Mar, not Meager. He's right. You blew that one too. You're really doing well today, Mary, with the name pronunciations.
Fucker.
You did say Meager.
Maybe it's a Canadian thing. Did you also know that in Canada, Z and Z are pronounced differently?
I love how the fact that when you fuck up, you say it's a Canadian thing. You could say you made a mistake. It's just because you say process and you say a boot and you say offense, you say pasta.
That was funny the other night when Allie K was talking about how her husband says pasta weird, and then I said pasta, and she's like, "Oh, it's a Canadian thing."
So yeah. The witch were hanging around the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, it's kind of like Claiborne was hanging around the Pizza Hut too when he was shot in Franklin.
Allie, I know you went to Endicott. That's pretty cool. That's pretty sweet. That's a college up here.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's pretty funny. Endicott's that's a pretty good school up there. That's at North Shore, Massachusetts, Marblehead, Salem. That's nice up there. I mean, Danvers is kind of a shithole in Italy, but it's okay.
Post-COVID travels, I plan on doing a tour of New England.
Yeah, I'll take you to Danvers. You'll enjoy the hell out of that. You know.
Is that like Gary, Indiana?
No, it's not as bad as Gary, Indiana. This is
Jay Price talking about that the other night.
I mean, the only worse town in Indiana than Gary is South Bend. Okay, for many friggin' reasons. I'll leave it at that. Fuck them. But Carolyn went to Dean College. Oh wow, there's a lot of New England, a lot of Massachusetts. Wow. College, New England schools here. See, how smart people went to school in New England, Mary. Just saying. You know why? Because we know how to pronounce Mar and Carney. And it's just the smarter people. It's just smart people.
Fucker.
You know how to pronounce that pretty well, don't you? But no, Salem's cool though. They actually put a bunch of regulations and rules in because of COVID though.
Allie said Danvers is a place for sure. And Darren's frozen again. Hopefully his internet doesn't drop off. I might have to
Methuen. Hey, look, Fritz is here.
Yeah. Oh, Caroline's from Connecticut.
Ew,
Fritz, Mary says fucker as much as Skip Bayless mentions Diet Mountain Dew. She must get a kickback somehow. I wish I did. I don't.
You do swear a lot. It's just pretty funny. But again, I
do. Which remember when we were talking about when we were in the beginning stages of this podcast, and I was like, we're gonna have to swear because I can't not swear.
Do you remember back in the day, a million years ago, when I first started talking to you, you never
when we didn't swear around each other?
I didn't know. You never did. You were so friendly and sweet and nice, and then all of a sudden you turn into then your true colors came out. It was pretty funny.
I say it's because I'm the granddaughter of a sailor.
Doesn't matter. I think swearing's cool. So Caroline's from Connecticut, huh? They're Connecticut.
Hi, Rick.
We call Connecticut New York, Massachusetts here.
You're going to alienate if you keep
no,
doing
I'm not.
that.
That's okay.
Ryan says, given the love fun with Pierre Beauregard, I'll just say his full name though. Pierre Gustave Toutant Beauregard. Which I think Allie B, she pronounces his name out loud every time she reads it. I'm surprised you're not into Camille Polkat, Prince Polkat de Polgan. I can't say it. I'm gonna
Polignac.
Okay, and his Texans. Thank you.
I'm gonna give that Robert E. Lee glare right now. You know what? That's the best name of the Civil War, though, is without a doubt is Philippe Brigitte Denis de Carendon de Trobriand. That's the best name of the Civil War.
Not that's states' rights, just
states. Oh, God. But yeah, Philippe Brigitte Denis de Carendon de Trobriand is the best Civil War name. That's the best name. It is. It is. And I can say it. I can't say what the friggin' river I can't say. Chattahoochee.
See, you mispronounce stuff too.
I'm going to tweet that video of you trying to say Massachusetts back in like April.
Yeah.
When I was trying to teach you how to say it and you still couldn't do it.
I still can't say Massachusetts.
No, you can't do it.
I was saying it around one of my friends the other night, and they actually were like, "Could you please stop saying it?"
I've said that many times. So Fritz signed on. Hey Fritz, what's going on, man? Hopefully things are going well down in Mexico.
Too funny, and Allie said the best name to say. I think she's referring to Beauregard.
Caroline, what town in Connecticut are you from? Just out of curiosity, because I'm curious if you're on the Red Sox line or the Yankees line. So chime on. This is a very important question, Caroline. It's a very
think
important
about your answer.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Fucking baseball doesn't matter anyway. Baseball didn't even happen this year, but I mean, I think going into a lot of this stuff before, again, kicking back into the alcohol thing. Pierre Beauregard is a good nickname, though. I mean, Ryan's got that. That's a good one.
Yeah, actually. We got to get Jen rolling. I want to get her to do some artwork.
Where has Rolling been, by the way? Actually,
I don't know. I got to message her later today and
where the hell is Aunt? Where the hell's Pike been, by the way? Too. Speaking of her,
I don't know. I should give her shit for not being on here. Except I like her too much.
Oh, she's awesome, but she's
wonderful.
She must have been something you said.
Caroline said, I'm back. Yes, what? Caroline, he wants to know what town you're from in Connecticut, and he's curious if it's on the dividing line between the Yankees, Red Sox. Be very careful with your answer.
This is a very important question I must need to know. Connecticut's an interesting state. I'm not a... No one in Massachusetts or New England is a big fan of Connecticut. I'm just going to tell you. I mean, unfortunately, it is what it is. But I have friends from there. I have some friends who went to UConn, went to University of Hartford. So I guess I can't hate on too much. I mean, it's way better than Ohio is. I'll tell you that. But yeah, Alabama up the north.
Caroline's from Ohio. Lives in Ohio.
Oh, is she? I don't know.
Yes, she lives in Columbus. She's the Buckeyes fan.
Oh, that's right. Whoa, West Simsbury. That's Yankee territory. Oh, God.
Watch Darren retreat faster than Brockenbaugh did. Or Broken ran.
Broken ran. Broken ran. That was a good one, too, actually.
West Simsbury.
Yeah, that's those aren't the droids I'm looking for.
The other question, Caroline, is are you a Yankees fan or a Sox fan? This is when we find out she cheers for the Indians and I can high-five her.
You can like the Indians because a friend of mine plays on the Indians, and I'm happy for him.
I know, and I'm glad. I was talking to his wife a bit last night.
No, I saw it. I noticed that.
Allie said Connecticut feels like it takes 10 years to go through. When I went up from Pennsylvania to go back to school, I hated going through it. That's kind of like what Ohio is like to drive through. Like I used to drive down to Florida with my parents all the time when I was a kid, and Ohio was like, fuck this.
Well, you got to get off
the Merritt. It was so flat.
Allie, you got to get off the Merritt Parkway, exit 39, I think it is. You got to get off there and take that back road. Because when I go down to Pennsylvania, and I go down to Gettysburg 3 or 4 times a year, Connecticut is the worst. Because you got to go through New Haven, which sucks, and then it goes all the way down, all the way through there. And it's just that Connecticut is friggin' brutal. But it just, the Hartford area is not too bad, but it's Connecticut's tough. So you went from Connecticut to Columbus. Columbus is pretty cool. Gonna spend some time in Ohio jail in Columbus one night. That was a good night.
The Ohio jail story. Oh my God. And Darren's frozen again. I'm really hoping his internet doesn't drop like it did the other night when I had to like sit there in silence and wait for him to come back as we were recording the show. So anyway, looks like I might be carrying us for a little bit because he's clearly dropped off and frozen. So anyway, great discussion day. Jim, Illinois is the state that never ends. Yeah, when I went to Springfield for Rail Splitters 100th episode, which is where I got to hang out with Jay Price, where I got to meet Nick and Jeremy, who are my co-hosts on Rail Splitter, for the first time. I'd never been in territory that's so flat. Like I just remember,
you haven't been to Oklahoma then, that's for sure.
This was crazy. Like I had never been that far west. That is the furthest west I've ever been.
Ryan, come on.
What's he saying? I know nothing about American sports except I support Notre Dame in the college stuff purely because they're the Fighting Irish. There, I've exhausted my U.S. sport knowledge. Oh, come on. Give him some credit. He's from England. At least he cheers.
So he's rooting for the Irish? Okay, first of all.
I'm going to bring him a Notre Dame shirt when we meet him.
Who are you? I'm getting a new podcast partner. First of all,
Jay Price, I think, likes Notre Dame, so be careful.
Why are you doing a French school in rural Indiana, and they call themselves a Notre Dame when there is only legitimately one Irish Catholic college in America that's really Irish Catholic? And guess what they're called? They're called the Eagles. They're not called the Fighting fucking Irish. There is no more overrated institution in the world, period, than the University of Notre Dame. I think we
got a Minty versus Claiborne thing going on here, because I think Minty was from Ireland and obviously so was Claiborne. I think there's a little bit of a rivalry happening here.
But I understand.
You know what? Let's bring Ryan a Notre Dame shirt and a Boston College.
I'm not going anywhere in Notre Dame shirt. That's on you then. I'm not gonna touch that.
I'll buy it.
Kidding me? I'm gonna get AP Hill gonorrhea touching a Notre Dame t-shirt.
Because you go to the Bang Barn.
Go to the Bang Barn, exactly. Put that in there. But John's right. Texas is the state that never ends. Fritz, if you're still on, he's right about that. You can go from Texas. You can go from, you go down to Houston or even further southwest and go all the way northwest, and you can drive for days. And Texas goes on and on and on. You know what else is? Virginia goes on and on and on. By the way,
the hilarious thing about Texas is, how people say like Texas big or whatever, like size of Texas, is. I was in Ohio one time hanging out with some of my friends, and they were going on about how big Texas is, and I said, yeah, Texas fits in Ontario. And then we looked it up on the map, and
Father Corby was Notre Dame
look at
guy.
Ontario, my province, on the map, and look at Texas. Look at the square miles.
Father Corby was a Notre Dame guy. Yes, I know. But you know something? It's only because he couldn't get into Boston College. That's why. It's okay.
Amy says, no, Pennsylvania is the worst. I drove to Michigan from New Jersey a few times, and Pennsylvania takes 10 hours across. Yes, 10 hours, I counted.
Well, I mean, Fritz is right. It takes 2 days to go through Texas. It goes on and on and on,
Allie, Virginia's always awful to go through from top to bottom. It took 7-ish hours. Caroline, Amy, I feel your Pennsulvania pain.
I love Pennsylvania, driving through Pennsylvania. It's a great ride, though.
Dave, thank you. Boston College has Jesuits.
Oh, it does. It does. Hey, Fritz, next time we do the round table, you got to jump on, man. We missed you the other night. You would have really enjoyed that. That was fun.
Yeah, Dave said Florida is surprisingly large. Key West to Pensacola is 12 hours. Yeah, because once, my family had a house down in Florida, once we crossed the Florida border, we still had 3 fucking hours after being in the car with each other for 17 hours. And by that point, I was ready to kill everybody, but I couldn't drive, so I didn't know what to do with the bodies. And also the driver's license thing was an issue.
You know what you do with the bodies? You bury them under a deck of a new house. Because, eventually they're going to have to rebuild that deck, and someday they're going to find the body, and you'll be long gone by then. Be like the house on Haunted Hill.
Mike said Bristol, Virginia is closer to 5 other state capitals than it is to Richmond. Ryan, I'm Irish, but she who must be obeyed is very English.
Yeah, the fighting. No, it's not the fighting Bostonians, but you could have had something else. Actually, to be totally honest, Boston College should be the Fighting Irish. That's what their name should have been. That's what it should have been. They should have been. Fighting Irish is a cool name, but the problem here is you have a lot of Irish people in this city who associate with Notre Dame because of the Irish part of it. And whenever Notre Dame comes to BC to Chestnut Hill to play, you get a lot of these people with these heavy Boston accents rooting for Notre Dame, and it's just laughable. I will say this, I will give props to Notre Dame for this, is some of the nicest people out there. Like, I've been out there for football games. I was out there for that glorious game when we beat them when they were number 1 on the last second field goal. And they're very nice people. They're nice people out there. Indiana people are a little different than here.
Mike said, Texas is ginormous in all kinds of places it has no business being. Fritz said, nothing is as mind-numbing as being sentenced to having to drive through Oklahoma. Come up and drive through Northern Ontario sometime. That is a fucking adventure. Jim said, one good thing about Notre Dame is they have the Sherman family papers. I did not know that. That's cool.
I did know that.
Dave said, except in Florida, houses don't have decks, so that plan would fall through. No, they have what's called the lanai.
Oh, the lanais are nice though. I was at a house in Sarasota a couple of years ago. It had a nice lanai.
Yeah, the house my family had there had a really, really nice lanai. It was, and a grapefruit tree and an orange tree in the backyard.
You know what's cool about some of these states you travel around in, though, is you start to see going back to the cemeteries again. You go in these random places and you pull in these old cemeteries. And I was in a place, where the hell was I? I was in New Hampshire, of all places. Speaking of land of the time where time forgot, I was in New Hampshire, and they had a Confederate cemetery.
Wow.
I don't know how the hell that happens, but we're up there, way the hell up by Jaffrey, which is not far from probably where you are, probably. Well, not really, but it's way up in New Hampshire by Canada. And it's a little place. That's
really far from me. That's closer to the island provinces.
Yeah, where it says Confederate Cemetery. It was like probably like 5 graves, but I don't know how the hell that happened. But
there's a Confederate cemetery in Ohio on Johnson's Island.
It's a Confederate monument in Boston. People don't realize that.
Well, there's a monument too on Johnson's Island as well that was put up by the Daughters of the Confederacy. But the Johnson's Island Cemetery is actually, I love going there. Every time I go to Cedar Point, I make a point of going there. You have to pay there's like a $2 toll to cross over to the island because it's privately owned. But the cemetery is very peaceful. I like wandering around it. And every time I go, I write down a few names and then I go back and I research about the people that I find.
I do all the time.
Yeah, and the one guy I found turned out he was in his late 40s when he was captured. He obviously died there because he's buried there. I think he was in an Arkansas regiment, and he was under Patrick Claiborne. And he was obviously an officer because Johnson's Island was strictly for officers, and that's where Isaac Trimble was held, which is one reason I picked him to drink with. Circling back to our episode, but it is a very interesting place to visit. And it's also a place where, so when they were picking Johnson's Island, they picked it for where it was in Sandusky Bay. They had a couple other islands that were out in Lake Erie, but it was felt they were too close to Canada. And because my country was kind of not to be trusted, rightfully so, because of Quebec, Montreal, it was thought that if the closer in proximity the prison was to Canada, the more likelihood of a raid. But there was a raid that was planned on Johnson's Island that was never carried out. The other thing about Johnson's Island too is at that time, like when Lake Erie would freeze completely over, it's very shallow. I think it still does. But if prisoners escaped and went onto the lake, they stopped chasing them after a certain point because they were like, if these guys have made it this far and they're running across a lake to Canada, just go, and they let them go.
I
wonder what happened to those guys if they stayed in Canada or if they eventually came back to the U.S. because they would have been officers.
Probably still alive today.
Probably my ancestors. Maybe it turns out I'm.
That's probably exactly what it is. You're probably kind of evil, whatever, you know.
Who knows? So Ryan has a question here on the subject of Illinois. Is it true that the southern part of the state around, I want to say Cairo, but I think it's pronounced Cairo, was super pro-Confederate at the start of the war, a la the rumors about Blackjack and other Dems flirting with going south? I mean, it's kind of an extension of the border south and relying on Mississippi River trade. I think off the top of my head, that might have been the case. Like, Illinois was, in a way, a very divided state when it came to the Civil War.
Well, a lot of the northern states were. People don't realize that. People assume that it's the blue states versus the red, the Confederates and the blue. It wasn't that case at all. I mean, New York City it's almost a seat of themselves. The draft riots in 1863, there was, we had talked about doing that podcast on the Copperheads and the KGC and all that stuff we were going to talk about, but there was by no means, just like in the South, it wasn't all pro Confederate either. I mean, you had you had Jones County, Mississippi, that movie that back in the day, but there was not 100% support, because it wasn't country versus country. It was the same country. So you had certain counties, you had certain states, provinces, whatever you want to call it up here, that didn't go to the party line. And Massachusetts, my state, was very pro-union. I don't think there was any openly pro-Confederate things here. But I know Maine certainly was. New York absolutely was. Just like in the South. So it's it goes back to the historical memory where you're thinking it's the North versus the South. It's just like a big conglomeration of just some partial support versus some partial support. And that's why it must have been so hard for Lincoln and the administration to keep it all together. I mean, you think about what a miracle it was Maryland didn't flip.
Well, really and Lincoln had to keep each of those border states, like he had to be so careful with them. What was there? There was Maryland,
Kentucky,
Missouri, and then, Delaware was still a slave state too, right?
Yeah, but Delaware didn't,
they didn't really count.
Didn't
really count. I shouldn't say that. Roger struck out. They're not releasing the beer anymore.
Yeah.
You better go buy some more weeks.
No. He texted me and said that a few minutes ago, he said they stopped making it.
We have somebody who's new to this, David. Hey, David. So yeah, it's super casual. Just comment, join in the discussion.
Just find a way to put up with her.
You fucker.
If you're paying attention. But
not like last week when you called me a genius when I said the Sox and the Indians could play together in the World Series.
No, that's can't happen. So yeah, genius. Delaware is still a whole lot of nothing.
That scene from Wayne's World, Delaware.
But there is something cool about going over the Delaware Bridge and crossing the Delaware. Of course, you got to pay $14 to freaking do it, but it's still pretty cool to do.
Wasn't I talking to you when you were driving to Gettysburg last time and you said, I'm George Washington, I'm crossing the Delaware?
Yes, but that was over, that was in New Jersey though. But it's true,
Ben, you're welcome to stay as long as your team Wheaton.
Ben's kind of sweet on this Wheaton fellow. We gotta find this. There's a story
team
behind this. This goes a little bit beyond the crescent moon, I think. But it is pretty funny. But no, but Dave, thanks for joining us. This is a lot of fun. We do a lot of this. Hopefully you watch the podcast too. We have a lot of fun with this. And Mary's pretty cool. I give her shit, but she's the smartest Civil War person I know, and she definitely knows she is. But she definitely puts up with my goofy ass. That's what damn sure.
Well, and back at Darren, who 10 episodes in, and I wouldn't want to do this with anybody else, and he's my go-to Civil War person, smartest person I know about Civil War. And yeah, as much as I give him shit and call him a fucker, I really do respect him, and he knows that.
Allegedly. Good morning, fucker.
Hey, fucker.
That's how my day fucking starts. Fritz, Sarah, you need to go back and read that book, American Nations. But you mentioned that before. There's a lot of books I got to read. What's a really good book that's sort of, I know it's different, but it reminds me a little of it, is Confederates in the Attic, which is a good book. Yep. It's a modern day book about Southern attitudes that still persist after the Civil War. But Fritz is right. Fritz knows his shit. He's been putting a lot of stuff on his Facebook stuff lately, which is really, really good.
Yeah. And I'm friends with Fritz on Facebook now, which is awesome. Jen said, Jay Price, is it true that when George Washington crossed the Delaware, someone was humming the theme from Jaws? Absolutely, because we saw it on a meme, right, Jay Price?
That is true.
Right?
And Robert Gould Shaw was actually on the boat.
He was.
And
someone said, we're going to need a bigger boat.
Like swimming with bow-legged women.
I love that movie.
That's a great movie.
Jen said, or Jay Price said, agreed, both of you make me feel like I don't know the Civil War at all. Oh my God, Jay Price, don't sell yourself short. Like everybody on here brings something amazing to the table. Like I've learned so much from everybody that comes on these round tables and the stories that get told and all that, and just the little facts that people know. It's really, really awesome. So you guys,
everybody has their niche with this type of thing. And I mean, Jay Price knows her shit. She's just sandbagging right now. She knows her shit. But it's like, but it's a lot of fun though, because what's so cool about this in all seriousness is you can go on this and you can talk to a bunch of different people and you learn something new all the time. Like there's probably not a day, because I mean, you're like me, you study this shit every fucking day, right?
Oh yeah, I live, eat, and breathe it.
Right.
And drink it apparently.
Every single day that goes on, I learn something new. There's just something new, and this podcast helps. Tony Horwitz, Confederates in the Attic. Yeah, spying on the sun. I've not read that.
No,
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that Tony Horwitz died. That was actually a real surprise. He died about a year ago. Pretty young. I think it was like in his 50s. Pretty young too.
Oh, I'm writing that down. Jeez, Mike's even book enabling us now too. Holy shit!
But Confederates in the Attic was honestly, Jen mentions it, is a really good freaking book. And I mean, and when I lived down there in the South, back with Fritz back in the days in Texas, you definitely see the difference in the North and the South, the attitudes, and it's just a different. And Dallas doesn't really count. That's almost like a northern city in the South. There's just so many transplants. But when you go outside of the city a little bit, and you get to see some different people, and you get to hear their attitudes, it's just a different world. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just different. It's a totally different thing. But their attitudes are completely different than they are here, and it's just, Hey, Fritz, what's up with the Cowboys, by the way, man? We lost a horrible game the other night. Jeez, I'm worse than my freaking team right now.
Yeah, what's his face from Ohio State's not playing too good, Ezekiel Elliott. But then again, neither is Aaron Rodgers, and apparently Cam Newton can't throw the fucking ball.
We don't need to see Aaron Rodgers' little hip dance like he did on the TV the other day. I went to see that Olivia Munn thing that he threw at her, But yeah, Patriots tomorrow, San Francisco. Jimmy G comes back. Probably another friggin' loss.
I think once I get like some Patriot swag to wear, they might start doing better. Maybe.
All I know, Mary, is since you started rooting for the Pats, they haven't been good. I'm just saying. You're bringing your Cleveland Indians friggin' karma to my beloved New England Patriots.
Maybe we need to get what's his name from Major League, Joe Boo?
Yeah, Joe Boo. Bats are very, very afraid. Very afraid.
Yeah. Joe Boo.
Yeah, Bushrod Johnson is a good alias, and A.P. Hill would have been a good wingman. A.P. Hill would have been a good wingman. He certainly would have. Bushrod, though, we'll find out. The alias. I gotta tell you. Can you get some Panthers swag then? Panthers?
No, fuck that, Ben.
Carolina? They still exist?
Jen, Mary, I think that will... Yeah, I know. Ryan said, my niche is all the European soldiers of fortune who got involved in your unpleasantness, and the Americans who fought in Europe and elsewhere prior to the Civil War, like Team Carney. There, look, I said it properly.
Wow, look at you finally, huh? It's because the aging diva left. You know something? You know what, Jen? Here's the thing, okay? Is I, honestly, the father, son, and Tom Brady has been my last 20 years of my life. But I am quickly on the anti-Tom Brady bandwagon right now. And he can go fuck himself until he retires. Yeah, oh, God. I cannot believe what a nauseating, whiny bitch he is. And you know what? And I knew he was when he was here at the end. And I just looked away because he was my boy. But, yeah, go Pack, go. It didn't help me last
I will be a Packers fan as long as Aaron Rodgers is there.
But when Brady retires, he'll be in the good graces again. But right now, we got Cam Newton who can't throw a ball, and we got receivers who can't catch a ball. We got running backs who can't run the ball. We have a defense who can't stop anybody.
Felt like I tweeted this last weekend. I was like, if you want to see what the Union Army was like at Second Bull Run, tune into the New England Patriots game.
And it's just so different here, though. It's just like I remember last weekend was. We're watching that Pats game with you, remember?
Yeah.
And in a halftime, like, fuck this. I'm not watching this shit.
I know. I stopped watching it at halftime, too.
I'm like, the hell with this.
We went on a beer run.
But you know what, though? It's good times are coming again. This year is an off year. Next year, not to go on football, but next year the Pats will be a contender again. They just needed a year to reboot everything, but that's fine.
Allie said, get yourself a hoodie, Mare. A good hoodie makes things, but absolutely. I bought a couple of new hoodies recently because I got rid of a couple that were from teams that I don't cheer for anymore. So, but yes, a New England Patriots hoodie is definitely in my future.
No, and look, Brady, when he retires, he'll be the greatest thing in the world. I just can't. These people here who are rooting for him in Tampa, I just don't get.
Allie B is Team Brady.
I mean, that's like rooting for your ex to win the lottery. Why? Why would you do that? I don't get it.
Poor Allie.
Yay! She friggin' won. Not that.
Oh, Joseph tuned in. Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Passing time in line to vote.
Oh
hey,
gosh, that should be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, so Joseph is, hope I'm getting this right, he is Western theater. He knows a lot about Franklin and Hood. Actually.
And I didn't realize Allie was a Pats fan. Good for you, Allie Biddles. Outstanding. Yeah. Outstanding.
High five.
Pats are still my squad. I live and die with them every single day, but I realize it's limited. But I've seen a lot of wins for the Pats. I can't complain. I'd be a dick to complain right now. I'm not going to do it.
Jay Price said the Bears won again. I really think this is the end of times.
The Bears, huh? The Bears.
Actually, speaking of Western theater, just since Joseph popped on here, I was reading a little bit this morning when I woke up and was waiting for you to get your ass out of bed to listen to the podcast.
Don't fucking judge me. Get my ass up late last night. Fuck with this fucking ghost show.
I was up late too.
No, fine, fucking whatever. Anyway,
I'm reading If We Must Die. I think it's called Let Us Die Like Men, or If We Must. Oh fuck, I'm messing up the title now. Anyway, it's by William Lee White. It's from Emerging Civil War.
If we shall die, let us die like men.
Like men, yes. I think that's the title of the book. It's written by William Lee White. It's from Emerging Civil War. It's about the Battle of Franklin. I'm 3 chapters in, and it's so good. Admittedly, I don't know a lot about the Battle of Franklin, but we do want to cover it on the podcast, and I'm really enjoying it. Emerging Civil War, if you look up their books, they do a lot of great ones. Some of them even have driving tours in them too. So when you go to the battlefield, it's got the coordinates in it. You can go to the places that they're talking about. And the ones I have about Chickamauga, they take you to kind of the out of the way places. Mm-hmm. So next time when we go to Chickamauga, we're going to go where Minty and Wilder were.
Oh, definitely. The Brady thing is the evil influence of fantasy. But yeah, well, that's more of the Peyton Manning thing, Fritz, to be honest. Brady was never a big numbers guy. And again, I wish Brady had stayed here. And a lot of it is me being a bitter freaking little bitch about this. And
whiny tattooed diva bitch.
And I'm just saying. I mean, think about if Troy Aikman left to go play for the Bears. You're going to root for him? They thought, no, you wouldn't. I mean, it's just natural. It's a natural thing, but that's how it is. But great book, Life is Wonderful. Yay, Ghost. Hey, Jen, you better bring your A game next week. We got a lot of good stuff we got to talk about. Hopefully,
she's going to.
We'll have to catch up before and get ready for that one.
I will message you about that, Jay Price, about doing some pre-show stuff, maybe a couple days before. Joseph says he knows too much about Hood. I don't think you can ever know too much about somebody in this. Like I find, I want to know everything about the Civil War, but the one thing I find is I do latch on to certain things. Like clearly I've latched on to Claiborne, Howard, Sherman, Meade, Thomas, Chickamauga, Gettysburg, but I still want to learn about it all. And then I find I'm latching on to more and more and more as I go. So, but I think it's good when you latch on to something because then you study it so in depth, you can teach people more about it. And that's important.
When you study the more about somebody, you find their foibles too, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of, and again, I keep going back to this, but it goes back to that whole historical memory thing where you see these stories about these guys and you read about them and you realize, okay, A, they're not as good as you think they were, and B, they're not as bad as you think they were. The truth is always somewhere in the middle, whether it be Lincoln, McClellan, Howard, Sherman, Bragg, any of them. They all had their things. And again, they all made their decisions in real time. And that's one thing we're not benefited with right here, is we can look back and we can talk about all the mistakes they made, about Bragg denying his own quartermaster order, and talk about McClellan being slow, and talk about Bragg, all that stuff. But again, these guys are making decisions in real time with limited information. And it's hard to judge plus and minus. Most of these battles, to be honest, there's who lucked out at the right time.
Exactly.
We talked about Shiloh. There was a 2-day thunderstorm that slowed the Confederates down coming up to Shiloh. And that 1-day difference between when Buell showed up to bail out the Union. 1 day, okay? Yeah. You talk about, and, I'm not going to go into the whole Gettysburg thing with Ewell taking Cemetery Hill, because that answer is simple. He didn't take Cemetery Hill because the 12th Corps was there. That's easy. If he attacked Cemetery Hill, the 12th Corps was going to be on his flank, and they would have got behind him. That's why he didn't attack. It has nothing to do with anything beyond that. He knew the 12th Corps was there. There was stories. Extra Billy Smith allegedly saw soldiers out there. They knew they were there. That's why they didn't attack. The end of story on that one. That's the way that one is. But I mean, all these things depend on complete and utter luck. And again, it's but you need that in a battle. You need to have skillful soldiers and commanders, but you also need luck. You need luck to win. The truth be told.
So some comments here. Caroline's off because Buckeyes are going. See you, Caroline. Thanks for watching.
Hope they lose. I do. Fuck them. I hate Ohio State. Fuck them.
Jay Price. Yay, ghosts. Yeah, Joseph said, great book. Lee is wonderful. Yeah, I've got his, I think he wrote a book about Chickamauga too, which I have. It's really, really good. Jen is reading, I'm reading Cal's book on Antietam. It's really good. And what else? Jen said, Jay Price said, love Meade and Sherman and Antietam and Gettysburg and Hancock. Yeah, when I was at Gettysburg, both times I've been at Gettysburg, so Jay Price and I have been friends for I think 5 or 6 years now. I lose track of time. And actually we message each other via WhatsApp, and she's Grant and I'm Sherman, and we sometimes send each other field reports.
Speaking of Sherman, okay, will you guys stop saying I look like Sherman? Because I don't.
You kind of do.
Between Denise Chain and who the hell's the other one who said that? I don't look at all like Sherman. That's crazy.
You sort of do.
Well, because we both have beards. That's so generic.
I told you it's like a slight resemblance, but you get all offended about it.
Because I don't think so. I don't know.
Doing the Alexis thing. Like, what does she do? She's like, yeah, when I was at Gettysburg, well, both times I've been at Gettysburg since I met Jen, I sent her a picture of the Hancock statue. And I like how his hand is there, and I like to call it the down bitches statue. But I'll send her a picture, and I'm like, he says, "Hey, girl."
Look more like Sedgwick. I could do Sedgwick. Sedgwick's cool.
Fritz said, "I have done that. He almost became an Eagle. He would have most assuredly be dead to me had that happened, like DeMarco Murray."
Well, Fritz, what if Michael Irvin went to Philly like he was gonna at the end? And then he was all happy and joyful. Oh, look at me, I'm so happy. Wouldn't that piss you off? I mean, but speaking of those, going back to the East Cemetery statues, we talked about this before, but there's that story about how the Hancock, I got this statue, his hand, that whole thing.
It's called the down bitches statue.
Okay, whatever you want to call it. But but there's the conflict about where Hancock and Howard had about East Cemetery Hill, and they say that's why the statues don't face each other. They face different directions for that reason, and that's popular,
Yeah, it might be true.
Watch your mouth, Jared. I'm just telling you, Fritz. He could have went to the Eagles, and there were stories he was going to go there. Welcome to my world. That's the way it was.
Is this a fight me moment?
No, I'm just trying to draw a parallel to understand the psychological damage that Tom Brady leaving New England has done to me. Okay?
I still remember the day, I was like, let me see one of your Brady jerseys, and you put it on, you sent me a picture, and you were all like,
yeah, I can't fucking believe I did that.
Allie B said, I'm the same way with Grant, but I love finding other books of other people whose names pop up while I'm reading. There's just so much to get into. Absolutely. Joseph said, wait till we talk about Franklin and Hood. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Actually, we're part of the Chickamauga Chattanooga Roundtable, and we are signed up for Joseph's talk that he's giving, I think, in
Yes,
December.
Joe. We're going to be students in your classroom here in a few weeks on the Chick Chat Civil War Roundtable. So we'll look forward to seeing that.
And Jay Price says, there is, for every book I read, I find 3 more I want to read. Exactly. That's how I got into Claiborne, was studying Sherman. And then I started reading about Claiborne and how he kind of Sherman couldn't beat him at Missionary Ridge. Admittedly, it was because Sherman could not read a fucking map. But anyway, so I was like, okay, who's this guy that was able to, I can't read a map either. Apparently, undulations, rolling hills.
It's undulations.
It's rolling hills, fucker.
It's high.
Fight me. We'll fight it out in person.
Oh, okay. That'll end well. Please.
But that's how I got into Claiborne. was I started Googling stuff about him, and then I bought the biography, and then from there you just like it kind of snowballs, right? It's like an avalanche. It gets bigger as it goes. Mm-hmm. Joseph said footnotes are the death of my bookshelf. Paul's got to leave because his internet. Well, Paul, you can catch this on YouTube too, because I'll post it on YouTube. Ryan said, speaking of people not being as good as you think, did Grant ever get around to paying Buckner back the money he owed him from before the war?
Simon Buckner?
Oh, that's a good question. It's also an interesting story.
Do you think that A.P. Hill ever got his money back from Burnside?
That was one of the things we talked about.
He owed him $9,000.
He's showing up at that battle to give McClellan shit, Burnside shit, and Jackson shit.
Undulations at Gettysburg, Vicksburg. Are you two talking about strip clubs again? You know what, Mary? Here's the deal, okay? We should buy a strip club called Undulations. Amy wins. She wins. Jay
Price, he's waving at me. Referring to Hancock.
That's too fucking funny. Undulations at Vicksburg. That'd be a great name. If you put a strip club in Gettysburg, there actually is one in Gettysburg.
There actually should be a strip club called Undulations at Rough and Ready.
Yeah.
And it's got the Bushrod Johnson rube.
They have a statue
and the Bang Barn.
Undulations. Yeah. Chantilly. Yeah, Chantilly was a tough one. Right after Second Manassas. That's what Kearney met his demise.
Jay Price said, I finally figured out the maps last month at Antietam. I had Harper's Ferry all wrong.
What do you mean you had it all wrong? Explain that one. Harper's Ferry is awesome. I love Harper's Ferry. What a cool place that is.
Again, another post-COVID travels will be to Harper's Ferry.
No, definitely. There are some guys. I wonder if the Six Thieves bar is still there or not. I don't know if it is or it isn't, but the one of them burnt down. But that is a cool place. That is really, really cool.
Allie said, yes, Ryan, he did. He actually gave him the money after Shiloh. Buckner was getting on a boat to get sent up the river, and Grant gave him the money, and they had a real good relationship after the war. Buckner actually visited Grant up at the cottage he was staying at before he died to introduce Grant to his new wife. Wow, that's she meant Donaldson.
Yeah, we got to find out. Somebody smarter than us, Mary, has to find out if A.P. Hill got his money back.
I don't think he did.
But he got killed. He got killed though in 1865. So he probably. I doubt he ever saw that money again.
Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah, he got killed right before Appomattox, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what's interesting is some of these friendships that were struck up after the Civil War between Union and Confederate generals. Obviously Sickles, Longstreet. What did you just?
Bang my knee in this fucking table. I do it all the time. Don't worry about me. You can continue.
Do we need to amputate?
Make my life a little bit easier. It'd be like
You'll. Are you gonna bitch about it later?
Probably. Well, Ewell got his leg cut off over at Groveton, right? And then he got shot at Gettysburg in the wooden leg, and he says, "Thank God it's made of wood. I would have to get it cut off." True story.
Well, it's like Trimble at Gettysburg when he got his leg shot, the same place he got it shot before, and he was like, "If he cut my fucking leg off before, I wouldn't have to deal with this shit right now, and I wouldn't be going to prison on Johnson's fucking island."
Such language, Mary.
That's what he said, because when you find out you're going to Johnson's Island.
Better than going to freaking Fort Warren, fucking Shutter Island land. Fuck, they full of people there.
You know how far north Johnson's Island is?
Yeah, that's not a bad deal.
Yeah,
yes, Fritz, we're gonna maybe we'll make a big business promotion. We'll have to involve you with that, with the Undulations. That would be a great. Honestly, on all seriousness, if you're gonna put a strip club on a battlefield, you got to call it Undulations.
Could we franchise that shit? I mean, and Amy's got to be in with us too for the profits of that. But could we franchise that? Civil War strip clubs on different battlefields.
But the problem is half these places wouldn't know what the fuck Undulations is. I mean, but it would be a funny name.
Well, we get a niche market in there.
Longstreet and Sickles is my favorite. That is the best. That is the best story in the Civil War as far as the drinking goes. Is that story that I mentioned on the podcast? Unfortunately, my microphone fucking sucked when I was talking about that. I don't know what the hell happened.
Another thing I had to hear about after we listened this morning
pissed me off. God, but that's a great story. Is these dudes? I love the fact that Longstreet and Sickles are in Atlanta. Okay, it's on
They were at a reunion, as Jay Price and another guy said. Yep.
It's St. Patty's Day. They're down on in Atlanta at this Irish reunion thing, and it's in front of a bunch of Confederate veterans and supporters in Atlanta, whatever. And friggin' Sickles, with his one fucking leg, stands up on a chair, sings the Star Spangled Banner in front of all of them.
Barton Key's dad.
That's like singing "Hail to the Victors" in fucking Columbus, Ohio. Okay, he stands up on the chair, sings that with his wooden leg, a song that he sang of a guy whose son he killed for hooking up with his wife at the Bang Barn, Francis Scott Key, by the way.
Barton Key.
By the by, he sings that. He ends up waddling back to his hotel with Longstreet. Then they end up going back to Longstreet's hotel. Just these two drunken guys going back and forth. That you know what, you want to talk about a good Civil War story, a fun post-war story. That's it. And that kind of ties it all together as far as how these guys felt each other. And Longstreet was a big fan of Sickles after the war. He credited him with allegedly saving the Union at Gettysburg, which is probably bullshit, but still. It's a great story. Think about it. And there's been so many times me and my friend Bill Mooney have stumbled up drunken as fucking hell up Baltimore Pike, going back from the friggin' Blue and Gray back to our hotel, and we've gone back and forth for different. There was one time we were at the Blue and Gray. We made it all the way back to the inn at Cemetery Hill, just to go back because we wanted more beer. So we got back to the hotel because we couldn't drink anymore. And then he's like, "Let's go get some more beer." All right, let's go back. Walk all the way back again. And I think about that story all the time. It's just,
this is my future in Gettysburg, isn't it, Weeks?
Oh yeah, totally. Are you kidding me? You'll be a fucking shopping cart fish.
No, you are.
Me? Oh God, please.
I've got a couple Civil War stories, friendships. So Joseph Johnston and Sherman, they didn't know each other too well before the Civil War, but when they met for the surrender, and they've been fighting against each other like Kennesaw and all that, so they became best friends after the Civil War. And Johnson was actually a pallbearer at Sherman's funeral, and he took his hat off, and it was raining, it was miserable, cold. Yeah. And someone said, "You better put your hat on." And Johnson said, "Nope, if he were here doing this for me, he would not be wearing his hat." And Johnson died less than a month later. The other story about Sherman is a lot of these men are obviously friends because of camaraderie. They can get together, they can share their stories, because obviously if you didn't fight in war, you didn't relate to it. I had a grandfather who was a sniper in the Canadian Army, and he was at the liberation of a concentration camp and all that. He never spoke to his family about what he went through, but he would get together with his buddies and drink. And I think it was, completely to have somebody to talk to about the same thing, the shared experiences, right? Because if you're a sniper, you're having to do some pretty horrific shit at times. And he did, there was stories that he did shoot German officers and all that. But yeah, liberation of the concentration camp would completely have done me in. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Sherman was very good friends with Grant and Sheridan after the Civil War. And Grant obviously died before Sherman, but so did Sheridan. And at Sheridan's funeral, there was obviously a bunch of Civil War generals there for it. But there was one man that was left standing there for hours after everybody left, and it was Sherman, because he knew he was one of the last, and those are the two men he could relate to the most, I think. There was obviously still other generals alive at the time, but that story was in Swift Terrible Sword, which is the biography I read about Sheridan, and it actually made me cry because the way the author wrote it, but just to picture Sherman standing there for hours after, just knowing he's alone.
Everything makes you cry.
Fuck off. Fucker. Jesus. I have emotion.
Oh yeah, sometimes that cold spirit of yours. But Jim tells that great story. I actually heard this story before about the Kevin Bacon story. So John Sedgwick is the third cousin of Kyra Sedgwick, the actress, who was married to Kevin Bacon. Cool. So there's a Sedgwick. Oh God, separation. Yeah. God.
J. Price, Sickles helped Longstreet's widow with travel arrangements when she attended reunions after Longstreet's death. Yeah, it's amazing how they helped each other out. And again, Darren, this goes back to the whole Masons thing. Like, is this also because a lot of them are Masons?
The Masonic thing was very, very big. It's still big. It's still big. I mean, anybody, anybody who's in Freemasonry like me, okay, and it's you learn a lot of stories like this, and they're really that is the Masonic thing is one of the few really unbreakable bonds with people
Yeah.
It's just because you go through. It's not easy to go through all that, and once you make it, it's just one of those things. But the reunion stories are great, though. There's a really good, I forget the name of it. It's a book I have, but it's a really good reunion story about the 75th reunion in 1938 at Gettysburg, which talks about these guys coming back and their stories and all that stuff. I love the stories about, I actually love the stories, but there are some of the actual Civil War veterans who came back to the Gettysburg battlefield in 1938 who died of heat stroke.
Yeah, which is like, you fought there and then you end up getting taken out by...
It's like that Final Destination movie. Maybe you were destined to die there and you came back and the battlefield got you. It's horrible, you know?
Yeah.
But I give you shit and I tease you about it. But the reality is some of these stories are tough to read. And especially when you really get into the humanity and the personification of these people and you see what these people are really about. And when you realize they're not just names in a book or lines on a map, or that these people had families and they had dreams and they had goals and everything they had, and they all went through different things, and they all had, you know, and just try to put them into the same situation. This whole alcohol podcast we did, it was designed to be fun, admittedly.
But I think it was also to humanize them too, to tell who they were, to take an opportunity to talk about, you know, like I was like, okay, I want to do Isaac Trimble. And I didn't care if I could find drinking stories about him. But when I started reading about him and seeing what a colorful character he was, you know, just from when he wants that promotion and Jackson writes for his promotion, but then he ends off the letter by saying, oh, he's not a good disciplinarian. Mm-hmm. Trimble's in his, like, you know, wounded in a hospital. And he's not only writing to defend himself, saying like Jackson's a fucker and he's wrong, but he's also he's fighting with the diva bitch of the Confederacy, Jeb Stuart, about who took the supply depot from the Union Army and who got it first.
Yeah.
And then he says to Jackson, I'm either going to leave this, at the end of this war, I want to either be a major general or a corpse. Like, it's just like, holy fuck, that guy's got life goals right there. It's like, you either make me a major general or I die.
But Mason, I still my Masonic ring every single day. Still wear it.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, Ryan mentioned the story about Burnside, Henry Heath being West Point roommates. What I want to know is how the situation of West Point roommates was between A.P. Hill and McClellan. That's the story I like. You want to talk West Point roommates? Burnside and Harry Heath, which you called Heth once, by the way. Speaking of name, fucking up. But that whole thing was funny. But the McClellan versus A.P. Hill one's going to be a great one because they were both dating the same girl. Yeah, they wanted to. You know, it was A.P. Hill's fiance.
Like Bang Barn.
But just that whole thing about all that stuff is the fact that these are the same guys, and you know, you have the story with Jubal Early with, you know, the Armistead with the pie plate getting broken over his head, and all these things.
They're hilarious.
Cool, fun stories to read.
Allie B says, Sherman, the oldest of the three, the last to die. Whoop, just made myself upset. Yeah, that's the hard thing about it. Sherman was the oldest of Grant and Sheridan, and he was the last to die. And I think just the three of them had some kind of bond.
It's gotta be hard. Like you see, like these World War II veterans now, where they come out, they come to these reunions, and like, there's always one who's always the last one alive, and whether it be a company or a regiment or a brigade or division or corps, there's always obviously going to be one of the last one. But Johnston outlived Sherman.
Yeah, only by a month though.
But he still did, right?
I don't know if he was older than Sherman though.
Oh, all right, I guess so. But he somebody outlived him.
I think like the point is like, so there's kind of the trifecta of the Union, which is considered to be, I call it the trifecta of awesome, which is Sherman, Grant, Sheridan. Mm-hmm. Three of them obviously had some bond. For Sherman to be standing there hours after everyone left at Sheridan's grave, realizing that he's the last of the ones, that the three of them were the ones who ultimately helped to win the Civil War the most, right? Like Sheridan's Shenandoah, and Grant and Sherman's March to the Sea, the capture of Atlanta and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be hard. And you see these guys disappearing. I think the last Civil War veteran died in like 1954, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Mid-50s.
Yeah.
And what I like to say was 64% of the Yankees championships happened before that year, which is always fun to bring out to people.
Ryan said of Kearney, Roberoo, Wheat, and I think Magruder have... You check that one, all getting trolleyed together in Paris before heading home to join opposing sides. Jen said, love that story. I didn't know that one. Allie said, I cry too. The first time I read a biography on Grant, reading about finishing up the memoirs and dying and seeing the letter he left Julie to find after he died, I had a good old ugly cry. Oh yeah, I cry so much reading this stuff. Like some of it is just, actually, Jeff Shara in his Western Theater series, the death of Albert Sidney Johnson is actually really sad to read.
Yeah.
Because Albert Sidney Johnson didn't feel it when he got shot because he'd been in a duel and he'd been shot and it had severed a nerve or something and he could not feel. So when he got shot during the Battle of Shiloh, he couldn't feel it.
Right behind his leg.
Yep, and they say he apparently had a tourniquet on him. The story, there's two different stories. One is he had a tourniquet on him and they didn't realize it, but he'd sent his surgeon back to look after the wounded soldiers. And nobody realized he had a tourniquet. And had they had a tourniquet, he could have saved him.
Well, the story I heard was he gave away his tourniquet to give to a Union soldier who needed it. That's what I heard.
Yeah, there's different stories.
But obviously there's a Simon Ballou letter. If you read that one. Rhode Island guy, as a matter of fact. Do you ever read the Simon Ballou letter? Really? Mm-hmm. It was a letter he wrote to his. You really seriously? It was a letter he wrote to his wife, who was before the first Manassas, saying basically, it's just one of those. If I make it, if I love you forever. If I don't make it, so it's a good letter to read. It was actually in the Ken Burns documentary. But
do you mean Sullivan Ballou?
Sullivan Ballou, not Simon Ballou. Sullivan Ballou. Yeah,
yes,
Sullivan Ballou.
I think all of us have probably heard the Sullivan
Ballou. No, you said no 3 times. So fucking A, fucker.
Fucker. But when you said Ken Burns biography or Ken Burns documentary.
Yeah. Sullivan Ballou. I'm sorry. Fucking Mary. But you know what? But people don't realize do you know his body was desecrated by the Confederates?
Yep.
They cut him up and friggin' Southern Jesus Christ. Who the hell is Simon Ballou? I don't know who that is.
Ryan said, or can you picture roommates Burnside and yeah, well, we talked about that one. Ryan asked, have you read either of the more recent biographies of Trimble? Are they any good? I haven't.
I've not read one on Trimble.
What are the titles of those? Because I want to buy those because Trimble is quickly becoming somebody I want to study. Ryan also said, it's that terrible thing like Wellington burying all his generals and most of their sons before he died. That takes a toll. Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing that Sherman did was men who had been on the march, especially men who had been on the march to sea, they would come to his home and they would ask for money and he would give it to them because he was a pretty well-off man, but he would help them out and they were not afraid to come help him. Like as gruff as he was, he loved his boys. There's a reason they called him Uncle Billy. Jay Price said, I saw a descendant of Sullivan Ballou read his letter on Memorial Day a few years ago. Oh, wow. And then Allie B said, are you thinking of Simon Bolivar Buckner? Kind of sounds the same.
That's probably about the same.
Yeah.
About the same. But Sullivan Ballou, that's a good letter. That's definitely a good letter.
Paired with a Shokin Farewell.
I thought you probably heard of that. I thought you had.
Yeah, I cry. I cry all the time, according to you, though.
Well, I'll leave that one alone.
Okay, Ryan said Tucker's biography of a Baltimore rebel. Yeah, because Trimble lived in Baltimore, and he was the building that he was like, I guess, engineer, you could call him. It's now the building that is the Civil War Museum in Baltimore that Trimble helped to build.
That's a cool little place in Baltimore where the train station is down there. Baltimore's a pretty good city. Some good bars down there, though.
I'll have to look that up, Ryan. Look at us getting book enabled.
I don't need any more books right now, man.
You know what? I've got a Confederate general that I study from the West, Patrick Claiborne. I need one from the East, and that is going to be Isaac Trimble.
You're into the Trimble thing all of a sudden.
Because he was part of Pickett's charge and also because he was on Johnson's Island and nobody knows much about him.
Oh, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's cool as hell. I just, apparently Darren Weeks just signed on. How the fuck did that happen?
Angela just signed on. Hey, Angela.
How did I just sign on? I've been on the whole time.
I don't
Friggin'
know.
Zuckerberg is causing all kinds of
It's
problems
Facebook.
here.
Zuckerberg's probably fucking watching us. Maybe George Lazenby's watching us.
Maybe Isaac Treble's watching us.
Maybe.
But Jen's back. She must be back from doing other things that are more important apparently than us.
She's been back for a while. Get with it, Weeks.
It just says Jen Price is watching.
She's been back for a while and commenting. Bees?
Yeah, it was a big bee. It was like a frisbee. That was a frisbee.
Back to the Future Part 3 when he grabs the plate.
Look, oh my God, that's a big one. You know, but they're you know, Sullivan Blue. There are some good letters with that. Yeah. We'll definitely have fun. But hey, Jonathan, thanks for signing on. He's gonna check out, so he's gonna go back and Jonathan Yingling is gonna make some more of this fantastic Yingling chocolate beer, hopefully.
Ben
apparently is almost out.
Ben said, All for the Union is a great book by Elijah Hunt Rhodes, edited by Robert Rhodes.
All for the Union is my second favorite soldier diary, after the Abner Small book. That's my favorite. That's The Road to Richmond. Abner Small is the best period book by far of the Civil War as far as diaries go. Rhodes is second. I would say Sam Watkins' Company H is third. But the first one, without a doubt, if you have not read Abner Small's Road to Richmond, the diary, it is by far the best diary. It's not even freaking close. And another one that's really, really good too is not a soldier diary. It's the book by Mary Chestnut.
Yeah, I've heard that is the Civil War book to read. What about E.P. Alexander?
He was pretty good. You know, he did most of his work in the afternoon. You know, apparently. You know, you look back at what he achieved, and you're mortified after the fact. You read what he actually did. You know, but he was good. He got those balls out there. No question about it.
Mike said, good book about Trimble battlefield by a guy who bought a farm at Cross Keys who researches Trimble after finding out his farm was where Trimble fought. Okay. I've got a couple books I'm going to be ordering.
But Jen has the Chestnut book. The Chestnut book is really, really good. What's interesting about her book, it's very obviously she's a woman. She's a woman from Charleston, South Carolina, who's writing about the war. But she was very connected, and so she had a lot of stories of generals and spies and things that were going on that are really, really neat that most people would not know in that time period. But I would put her book, but definitely Abner Small's Road to Richmond. I cannot suggest that enough. That is the best period number one Civil War diary by far is Abner Small's book. It's not even close.
Might have just enabled me again.
Well, you should buy that one, Fincher, because that's a good one.
What happened? I'm going to bring it to you, and you can just borrow it.
Fine, Jesus H. Christ. Fine, I will do that. Okay.
I'm just giving you shit.
I will bring it for you if you like. I will. I promise. But but you should have it anyway. I mean, that's a book that any Civil War person should absolutely read because because he was everywhere. He was very much like Elijah Hunt Rhodes, the Rhode Island guy, who was everywhere. And his book is real. What's interesting though about Rhodes was he talked about a lot of the stuff he did. His book is very campy. It talks a lot about the stuff he did in the camp and about the boring shit. But Small put a lot of stuff in about his opinion about stuff that was going on at the time, what he liked, what he didn't like, the shit he was seeing. And it's an interesting read. But Rhodes' book is definitely second. I mean, it's no question. And He's very not far from here. I think in Providence we determined last week, but I would definitely get that. But read those books. Watkins' book. Watkins' book is really. I was saying Watkins' book is really good too. It just is.
Allie B. She's being the queen of the Civil War book enabling today. You go, girl. If you want some book enabling, I finished up Gordon Rhea's Overland Campaign books, and they are great. Really put the whole thing in perspective. It's intense but great insight. Yeah, and that's a campaign. Again, like, you know, before I met Darren, back in May, I was very heavy into the Western Theater. I mean, I still study Gettysburg and the Eastern Theater and all that, but I want to learn more about the Eastern Theater because that's kind of his area, and then I'm more the Western Theater side of this. But we're kind of balancing each other out and we're learning as we go along. But
it's true. But the difference of these books though is if you read Cardington or you read Fonz or you read Sears or you read Trudeau or you read Freeman or you read Foote, any of these books, they've all got their own agenda to them. Yeah. But if you read these diaries, if it's a different, because they have no agendas, because most of them are written in real time. It's just interesting to read. It's just more of a brings you back to what was going on at the time.
Yep. Jim has a excellent episode idea here. Favorite Civil War books.
There's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, but I like that as an episode idea. Actually, that would be a good one for us to do during the winter when it's not campaign season. I think that's really
good. That's a good one. I mean, we could probably do what books we don't like and be pretty rare. There's only a few of them I don't like.
Yeah, there's a couple I don't. Yeah, there's one I can think of in particular that I don't like, but it's very rare.
Which one is that?
It's actually one about the Atlanta campaign. It's written very much from a lost cause perspective, and I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, there's a lot of that. It goes by who the writer is. I don't
absolutely.
like. I think I mentioned this earlier. I don't like Foote's book on Shiloh. I know it's more of historical fiction. Don't like that. There was that horrific book called I Am Lincoln that was written.
Oh God, I hate it. Like I read that. I'm like, that's awkward. There's two really good books that are historical fiction about Lincoln though. One is called A Friend of Mr. Lincoln, and it's excellent. We actually had the author on Real Splitter podcast. It's really good. And then there's a YA one called Young Abraham Lincoln. Again, author's name is escaping me. We had them on the Real Splitter podcast too, and they were both very nice people and excellent books. But yeah, I like the favorite Civil War books, and I think it was it Allie B or Allie K? One of the Allies was posting they were reading Sears Gettysburg. They'd already read Trudeau, and that's actually, some people ask me, okay, where do I start with Gettysburg? And I always say, start with Trudeau, because he's very much talks a lot about the soldiers' experience there, goes to their diaries and all that, and you get a really great feel for how things went in the battle. Then go to Sears, then go to Fawns and Coddington and all that. Like you can't dive in. If you go right to Coddington, you're going to be over.
Coddington is the master's / PhD level of reading for that, because like most of these guys, he writes with an assumption certain things. So he refers to things that if you study, if you don't, you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? But Trudeau's, I haven't read the Trudeau one yet. It's in here. It's in my bookcase. But my very first Gettysburg book ever was Sears, and that was pretty good. The Fonz books are the best in Gettysburg. The three Fonz. They're not even that close, but you really, as long as you're reading, but read different things. And it's okay to read the Southern perspective too, because it doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just, that's how they saw it. And whether right, wrong, or indifference, I mean, these people, that's how they thought, and that's how they felt. And I don't mean about the whole slavery thing. I just mean about their interpretation of the war and what they experienced. Sam Watkins' Company H is a fantastic book to read. There's a really good book called Lee at Gettysburg, which is a fictional book, but it's basically a Union soldier and a Confederate soldier from different perspectives fighting in the same battle. And it just talks about their experiences. The book that you're reading, Black Iron Mercy, is a fantastic book as far as about the Iron Brigade. Talks about Antietam, Gettysburg, talks about South Mountain, all those battles. That talks about I think Lee's Lieutenants was pretty good. That Jen just mentioned. Lincoln's Lieutenants was pretty good. That was
that's what Allie B is reading. So yeah, I think it's Allie K that's reading Sears's Gettysburg, and I think Allie K also got Battle Cry of Freedom too.
Well, was Lincoln's Hotel, was that Catton?
No, that's Sears.
Oh, who am I thinking? I'm thinking of Mr. Lincoln's Army. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
that's a Catton book I have. Yeah.
Just gonna say hi to Josh, who is watching us.
Okay.
Oh, Ryan's got another Trimble book here. Furious, Insatiable Fighter, a biography of Major General Isaac Trimble, CSA, by David C. Trimble. Both have appalling reviews before you jump in. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to read
Barry, you and I are going to write a book together someday, and it's going to be called Lincoln and His Fuckers. That'll be fun illustrations, that's for damn sure.
We'll get Jay rolling on that.
Exactly. But no, there's a lot of, as long as you're reading, that's all that matters. It's just, there's so many good books about it. It's
this is just to keep learning. Well, since we're book enabling, so this is my go-to book about Patrick Clayburn by Simmons. He's a Navy guy. It's going to appear backwards on the screen, but it's called Stonewall of the West. Really, Jackson's Clayburn of the East.
Jen's right. You're gonna
actually fuckers.
Actually fuckers. The Mary Fincher story. That. I'm gonna write the book on you someday. That's what it's gonna be called. Actually fuckers. Let's get a picture of you like this. Do you know, Jen? Do you know how many pictures I have of Mary giving me the finger on my phone? Yeah, it's true. Don't you look at me with that friggin' at the end of the Sixth Sense, movie look.
when I call you, like when I give you a call, and I'm like, "Hey, fucker."
I go, "Hey, fucker." I'm like, what the fuck was wrong with you? It's your friggin' problem. But
Ryan, he's got a good one. Claiborne, how one British corporal is worth a dozen American West Pointers by Chickamauga.
Yeah, Mary, Jen, Jen knows you. She knows. She believes. Of course she believes it.
She's
of course she does. Of course she does. Christ's sakes.
She knows how I am. She's hung out with me. I probably, within 2 minutes of meeting her in person, I probably dropped an F-bomb. I'm not quite sure, but I probably did.
I'm going to make a Facebook photo album, the middle fingers of Mary Fincher. It's going to be like 100 pictures.
So when Jay Price and I met in Springfield, it was outside the Lincoln home. And then we went and we drank, shocking, with everybody. But there was a historical event going on. And there was our friend Pam, who reenacts as Mary Lincoln. She portrays Mary Lincoln. And she went out and drank with us after in her Mary Lincoln dress, which Pam is awesome. Pam Brown.
Very cool.
Very cool. But it was, I think his name was Fritz, who was portraying Lincoln. Jen and I saw a Grant reenactor, and we were like, we're going over there. We hung out with him the entire time.
Was that the picture with you with the cigar?
No, that was when I was at Sherman's birthday with Jay Rowling.
Oh,
JR, as she should be called, actually. We'll call her JR.
Okay. Random.
No, that was in Ohio. This was in Springfield, and we were outside Lincoln's home, and we went over to the Grant reenactor, and we were just talking and hanging out with him the whole time.
That's pretty cool.
We totally fangirled. Jim says Donald L. Miller's Vicksburg book is awesome. Yep, I agree. I read that one last year, and it is it's in my top 5 of Civil War books. Miller's writing is very accessible. He talks about the campaign. I think it's a lot like Groom's book, Darren, where it starts with but it's not dry writing. It's very good.
I didn't find Bloom's book dry. I just felt the first chapter was, the Big Bang Theory. Like that's how far back it went. I mean, it just went back to the Earth was cool, the Jurassic era of fucking the Earth, the crust cooling. And then it's talking about how Vicksburg was created by the cooling Earth and meteors and rising water. And I mean, it just went way far. It went way too back. But there's a lot of cool stories in it, though. But it took me 3 months to read that damn book, and it went on and on. And that's a great. I mean, you know what though? The Vicksburg campaign should be one that's studied. West Point, VMI, Citadel, Norwich, every military school there is, because it is the most brilliant campaign in American military history by far, and everyone should study it the way Grant did it. But his book is just dry, and it's just long, and it's a lot of good freaking stories here, But it just went on and on and on. But it was definitely a good read. I have not read Miller's book, but I definitely probably should at some point once I could finish with Southern Storm by some pain in the ass person enabled me on. But I'll read that one. But you know what though? I'm not going to give you shit because I wanted to read that one anyway. That's one that was on my list for years. I finally got to read it.
Southern Storm is really good, and I think Allie B has read Southern Storm too. Hope I'm getting that right. But yeah, Miller's Vicksburg book is. I hope he writes more about the Civil War. Because he makes it very accessible. He is very, his narrative is very conversational. So you can kind of see it all unfolding in your head. And the kind of the companion to read after that would be Shara's historical fiction about the Vicksburg campaign.
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, Jen mentions the Wisconsin at Antietam. I mean, the Wisconsin, the Iron Brigade guys, the 2nd, 6th, and 7th Wisconsin, and that's great. That's hardcore shit. What's really cool about that is they drilled at Camp Randall in Madison, Wisconsin, which is the site now of Wisconsin's University's football stadium. You know what it's called, the stadium? University of Wisconsin, Mary? Camp Randall Stadium. Isn't that cool?
That's cool.
So their stadium where the football team plays is on the site of where the Wisconsin, all those troops trained for the Civil War, and they call it Camp Randall Stadium, which is really, really neat. But guys like Rufus Dawes, those guys were there. They're ballers. God, they're just
those guys were badass.
You know?
Jen, she's remembering our time in Springfield. Yeah, talking about trains in Springfield. Fucking trains. Trains were there a lot. Oh yeah, Jen got held up by a train. She was late.
Held up by a
fucking train. I'm getting texts from her like, "It's a fucking train" or something like that. And Jen said, "I love Pam. Her swearing, trying to find her cell phone."
These are great, obviously, inside stories that no one knows, but that's great.
Well, Jen, she drove to Springfield on, I think it was Saturday morning of Labor Day weekend, and she was going to be on time for this. We had tickets to go on a tour to Lincoln Home, and then she texted me like 2 minutes before the tour began. She's like, "I'm stuck, and there's a train." She didn't make it.
But Jen Price, you need to read Black Iron Mercy. You need to read that book. If you like the Wisconsin guys, you need to read that book. That's
it's really good. It's really good, Jay Price.
Are you still reading it?
Yeah.
How far are you? How far away?
Not very far, because I'm also reading the book about Franklin, and I'm trying to finish up the last 50 pages of Southern Storm too. It depends on my mood weeks. It depends if I'm feeling Eastern theater, Western theater, or historical fiction.
Nothing better than Mary Fincher's mood. Nothing better.
Yep.
But Jay, seriously, read that book. It's a historical fiction. It's almost like a Shara book, but it's very well written, and it's just hard to explain. It's just a very, very good book. So definitely check that one out.
He writes as well as Shara.
And it's just a good book, and it's just really interesting because it talks about a single guy who fought through all the battles, his personal life, his love life, his family life, and all the stuff he experienced. And whoever wrote that book, his name is like a big long name, like it starts with an S, like Scheidelstein.
It's a German name, I think. Like Schimmelfinning.
Yeah, it's like one of those names, but it's just whoever did that really knows their Iron Brigade. So if you like the Iron Brigade, then definitely check it out.
Ryan said the first time the Civil War has made the newspapers in the UK since Lord Palmerston toyed with sending some gunboats and sorting you chaps out. Oh, he's got another. I forgot to mention, we have Civil War controversy in the UK. The people of Liverpool have woken up to all the commemorations of the CSS Alabama and CSS Shenandoah in the city. And then Allie said, "You enabled those Western Shire books on me from your other podcast. I love those books. I think my favorite one is the Vicksburg book. I really like the way he writes Grant and Sherman." Yeah, and I find talking to people, they each have a favorite book in the series. Mine is Smoke at Dawn, about the battles for Chattanooga, and the way Shara writes Sherman is spot on. Same with Grant. Claiborne is amazing, and Bragg is amazing to the point where when you read his chapters or you listen to the audiobook, like I've done six times for the Smoke at Dawn, you want to strangle him. But they're excellent books.
That is pretty cool. No, I definitely gotta read more stuff. Someday I'm gonna write a book, Mary. Someday I'm gonna.
Well, as you said, we should write a book together.
What are we gonna do?
Actually, fuckers.
Actually,
maybe I don't know.
Well, you're gonna write an OO book. You're definitely gonna do that.
Maybe.
I'm gonna write a book on Arthur Fremantle.
You should. You know Fremantle quite well. You're quite familiar with
I don't want to make him in pictures. I know how to fucking see.
Hi to Kevin, who just popped on, as we're probably gonna head off here soon because we've been doing this for over 2.5 hours.
Oh, it's 1 o'clock. Holy freaking hell. It's 3 hours long.
It goes by so quick.
It does. And I'm almost out of beer. Now Roger's telling me this beer is almost gone. I gotta go find more of this shit now.
Allie B said, "I do love the Smoke at Dawn. My brother and I were listening to the audiobook on our trip, and he wanted to shut up." My favorite part in that is the chapter from Claiborne's perspective where he goes to meet with Bragg, and he can see that Bragg is becoming unhinged, but he can't say anything about it. And he's just like, they're having this really awkward meeting, and Hardy comes into it partway through. And I can just see the two of them like standing there like, oh my God, Bragg is truly unhinged right now.
Yeah, well, that's just funny about it. It's these individual stories. That's the best part about it. But, so couple of coming attractions, we start to wind down. So we talked before about how the great Jennifer Price is going to be on our podcast that we're going to be recording on Tuesday about ghosts in the Civil War. So she's going to wow us with her experiences. We'll have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
And then next week we'll talk about that. That'd be a fun one. So we're going to dress up for that one, right?
Yeah, we are. It's Halloween. So yeah,
it'll be Halloween. Well, a week from today is Halloween, right?
Yeah. So we're going to be dressed up for our Facebook Live.
So we're going to have Jen on with us on the live, right?
She'll probably be out running, but maybe
Jen, next week, do your running later, or you can run in place during the podcast if fucking want. Whatever the fuck you want.
Jay Price, just don't listen to that fucker.
I think Jen needs to be with us on this, and we'll do a little try box thing for next Saturday. Is that what they call it? They call it an undulation.
You fucker.
But I think if she can be on with us, we can have the three of us on talking about ghosts. That'd be a fun talk. But Jen, if you go on, you got to dress up. That's the problem.
I can schedule my run around the Facebook Live if you guys want. That's not a problem.
All right, deal. So she's on. So next Saturday we're gonna have three of us on.
Yeah,
okay? 3 of us. So we'll do it. You can make that happen, right?
Yeah, I can make that magic happen.
Okay. All right. So Jen, you're gonna be on at 10 o'clock next Saturday. So we'll be on and do this.
Yes.
So we're gonna do that.
Jay Price also said the cover of your books would be Howard giving people the finger. Weeks. I think that needs to become a meme.
Be out of the left arm, obviously. Just a finger stick out of his shoulder. I was a Civil War reenactor. I'll bring my A game. So does that mean you're dressing up in Civil War gear, Jen? Is that what you're saying?
Well, she's going to surprise us.
Okay. Well, we're going to be Belichick and Bellatrix, right? Is
yes.
We're going to be?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I could dress in my Civil War uniform too, either one. But we'll do that.
I was thinking of going as Barlow. I'm just wearing a plaid shirt.
Just going to stare the whole time?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to shut up and let you two run the show.
All right, we'll figure it out. Okay. Be a scarecrow. The scarecrow forming his venture.
Ryan said, forget Fremantle, try George St. Leaguer Grenfell. He was an amazing British soldier of fortune.
Going a vampire for Halloween, so I may just do that. Okay, be a vampire, whatever you want to do. But we'll do something. So we're going to do Ghosts of the Civil War next Tuesday. We're going to record that, and we're going to drop that on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then we'll do the live on Saturday, and then that'll be fun. We'll figure something out. We'll figure out the dress. But that'll be pretty cool. Anybody who wants to join us for that round table, just email us. We do it for the third Wednesday of every month. civilwarbreakfastclub@gmail.com. Email us. We'll have you on. We had a blast last Wednesday.
It was awesome.
It's just like this. We just go on. We shoot the shit. We talk about stuff. It was very laid back. People talk about their experiences, what they like, what they don't like about the Civil War. Definitely do it. It's a lot of fun. A lot of folks who've been on this live have been on that too, but a lot of people who
Allie B, Jay Price, Amelia was on there. We're hopefully get Ryan on there next time.
Hopefully, and Fritz, if you're still on us, you got to join us next time. That was so much fun. It'd be cool to get to talk to you again. So
Jay Price said the round table was a lot of fun. Ryan said Posh Grenfell rode with John Hunt Morgan amongst other adventures.
John Hunt Morgan, another guy who spent time in an Ohio jail. John Hunt Morgan. Speaking of, it all goes back to Ohio jails, Mary. I'll tell that story after a few beers sometime. I told you that story, but it's not that big. It's not that big of a deal.
Allie B also said the round table was great. Thanks, Allie.
It was. Allie was awesome on it. It was fun.
Yeah,
and it's very laid back. Yeah. There are very few places you get to go and kind of laid back, casually hang out and talk to people about this stuff without any sort of being too academic-y or too judgmentally. It's just fun. It's just, you know what? We're all stuck in this pandemic fucking existence, and just have fun with it. Just enjoy this and have a good time with it. And hopefully you can all join us with that.
And someday we're gonna get to hang out with all of you. And
someday we'll do this in a real bar somewhere. We'll do our traveling road show. We're already going to Chickamauga and Gettysburg and Franklin and everywhere else we've fucking talked about.
Yeah.
But that'll be fun. But hopefully, but regardless, this is, nothing's better than being in person, obviously, or being at a battlefield, but being online virtually is a pretty good thing too. So. But I think that's enough for today. I think we've done enough damage for one day, Mary.
Yep.
I think my beer is almost gone, so I guess that's to be the end of it. So,
well, thank you everybody for spending time with us. Some of you have been on here right from when we started at around 10 o'clock. So thank you for that. Thank you also for just supporting us through all these 10 episodes and helping to create the community that we created.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely stick with us, have a lot of fun with us, and we appreciate everything you guys do. So
got one question from Ryan. Do you have O.O. Howard Union Journal by Gerald Welland, My Only Book of Howard, Last Book Enabling of the Day? I don't. So I will soon though. Thanks, Ryan.
Great. More money.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we will catch up with you guys soon. Have a great rest of the weekend. It's Saturday mid-afternoon. Hopefully your football team wins, unless it's Ohio State or Notre Dame. And we will look forward to talking to you soon. Mary, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
We'll definitely be doing many beers the rest of
the rest of the day. Yep.
Yeah. So we'll have fun with you after this ends. So Anyway, again, everybody enjoy your weekend. We look forward to talking to you soon. Have a safe weekend and go BC.
See you guys.
Go Pats.
Go Pats.
Clear?
Almost. I'm just waiting for it to.
Yeah, we're out. Okay. Well, that was good.
That was really good. I'm just going to stop the recording now. Bye, guys. Anybody who's watching the recording.